Dragon Ball Daily Gift Pack Chapter 61-80. 61. Iron Head Baby Vegeta. The 10th update is on the shelf for automatic subscription. Trunks thought that his father with a combat power of 40 billion would be able to easily suppress the normal Uncle Suyi, but it turned out that his father was suppressed and beaten. This, how not to shock him? Trunks, sometimes it's not what it looks on the surface. Sun Wukong didn't think that Vegeta was being beaten by the normal Suyi. What he saw was that Suyi was feeding Vegeta, and Vegeta also burst out with all his strength to confront Suyi. Isn't it shallow for a veteran like Sun Wukong? Piccolo put his arms on his chest and explained to Trunks lightly, Suyi is feeding Vegeta, this is just foreplay, wait for the real battle to come. Boom. Just then, there was an explosion in the sky. Boom. Vegeta was knocked down on a mountain by Suyi, who was in a state of explosive gas, causing a burst of dust. Uncle Bick, is this also a trick? Trunks swallowed and pointed to the mountain where Vegeta fell, shocked. Piccolo was speechless for a while, and there were several beads of sweat on his forehead. Just as the barrage on one side said when he watched the Dragon Ball anime in his previous life, Piccolo's embarrassed face turned green at this time. On the other side, Sun Wukong also laughed twice. He was too embarrassed to speak again. He really didn't expect that an ordinary burst of gas would be able to knock out Vegeta with a combat power of 40 billion. Brother Suyi's strength is indeed strong. Judging from the real experience, it seems that his combat power is real, while our combat power is a little vain. After a while, Sun Wukong didn't see Vegeta get up from the ruins of the mountain. He smiled wryly and shook his head and said a word. The outcome was already decided, and Suyi easily overwhelmed Vegeta with the full power of Super Saiyan 1 and a combat power of 40 billion in an ordinary burst of gas. Boom. No, it's not over. A powerful momentum suddenly burst out from the mountain, and was crushed by Suyi with just a burst of gas. How could such a proud Saiyan prince like Vegeta admit defeat like this? A smile appeared on Piccolo's face. Although this fellow Vegeta was a little arrogant and felt a little bit of a fight, his talent and self-esteem were indeed terrifyingly strong. In the sky, Suyi looked indifferently at Vegeta, who was flying up from the ruins below. His body was shocked, and he turned into a Super Saiyan 1 and raised his hand and slapped it down. Boom. Like slapping a mosquito, Suyi's slap easily slapped Vegeta hundreds of meters away. A few seconds later, Vegeta rushed over with a burst of momentum. Suyi didn't lift his eyelids, slowly raised his hand, and slapped it again. The same plot reappears, and Vegeta is shot hundreds of meters away again. The third time, the fourth time, the fifth time. Just like that, Vegeta, who has come here 13 times, has been in pain all over his body, and his actions are slower each time. By the end, his Super Saiyan state has disappeared, all relying on his stronger self-esteem. He pride forced it to fly in front of Suyi. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but look at each other in dismay. Even Suyi was speechless for a while. This Vegeta's head is too iron. The iron-headed baby in Dragon Ball world. Vegeta, the iron-headed baby, I will serve you. You should eat this super fairy bean and take a rest. On the 35th time, Vegeta, who had no strength at all, fell halfway in front of Suya. Seeing this, he teleported to him and gave him a super fairy bean. Soon, this guy jumped up and down again, and just about to fight again, he was knocked unconscious by Suyi's punch. Carrying Vegeta to Sun Wukong and others, Trunks hurried over to take Vegeta to support him, and looked at Suyi with adoring eyes. Wukong, do you want to point me to you? Suyi couldn't help but ask when he saw Sun Wukong looking at him seriously. Actually, I really want to. But come on then. Suyi didn't wait for Sun Wukong to say more, and carrying him to the sky was a fat beating. Katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. As for why Suyi was so active, it was entirely because of a task assigned by the system, to beat Sun Wukong, and before Vegeta was stunned, beat him once and be rewarded with 1,000 exchange points. He beat Vegeta 35 times just now, rewarding a total of 35,000 exchange points. This task is so rewarding. In his opinion, Sun Wukong's combat power is higher than Vegeta's, and he must be able to resist beatings a little bit. At least he has to get 50,000 exchange points from him, right? 20 minutes later, it turned out that the high-strength Sun Wukong was indeed resistant to beatings. Before fainting, he was beaten by Suyi 65 times. The 65,000 exchange points plus Vegeta's 35,000 exchange points were in hand, and his balance of 1 million exchange points returned to 1.1 million once again. 0. Beautiful. Suyi glanced at Piccolo and the others. The latter group immediately retreated more than 100 meters, for fear that he would suddenly want to give him some pointers. Seeing their gesture, Suyi shook his head. He was training Sun Wukong and Vegeta. Don't you see that these two guys have increased their combat power by at least 100 million in such a short period of time? However, the system didn't announce the task of beating Piccolo and the others, so Suyi didn't take the initiative to trouble them. He glanced at the fainted Sun Wukong, thinking that he should wait 2 days before taking them to find Sharu. Before that, he had to find out the specific location of Sharu. Bring Wukong and the others back. Let them relax for 2 days, and I'll go find out where this fellow Sharu is. After saying this, Suyi directly used teleportation to disappear in place. It's horrible. Piccolo and the others glanced at Sun Wukong with a bruised nose and a swollen face, thinking of Suyi's brutality, and their bodies couldn't help shaking. I was thinking even more in my heart, if the punch hit me, would I die in the third punch, or would I die in the second punch? Or, can't even take a punch. In a word, Suyi's strength was once again deeply imprinted in the hearts of all Z warriors, and it will never be forgotten for a lifetime. 62. Sharu, who is going to hold a martial arts tournament. 11th more. At this time, in a city in the north, the entire city fell into chaos. Monster. Run away. Damn, why does such a monster appear? Monster. Don't come near me. Ah. ... Screams and terrified voices rang out. Suyi watched all this indifferently with his hands behind his back in the sky. Shalu has no other way to improve his strength for the time being. He can only absorb the energy of ordinary people to improve himself. In fact, Suyi understands that this guy has Saiyan cells, and he can completely break through his current combat effectiveness. However, no one reminded that this guy has no such mind for the time being. Sharu, after so many days, your strength is still so weak. Suyi teleported to Shalu, who saw his face suddenly changed. 093, hurriedly threw away a human being in his hands, and then crawled to the ground. After so many days passed, the pressure on Suyiguang under normal conditions was unimaginable, so he immediately admitted and fell to the ground, not daring to have any thoughts of resistance at all. However, Shalu's heart was roaring wildly. Suyi. Sooner or later I will absorb you and make you tremble under my feet. Suyi looked at his trembling body indifferently, and smiled coldly. Is your little mind moving at this time? Thinking that one day you will kill me? Then absorb me? No, don't dare. Sharu's body trembled again, and his lowered head was full of shock. He couldn't imagine how this guy knew what he was thinking at the moment. I still know something about you, don't deny it. If you want to absorb me, then try your best. Suyi is not annoyed. I am afraid that only he himself understands the invincible loneliness at the current stage. Sharu has the potential to be his opponent and has a better chance of pushing him beyond his limits. The possibility of Super Saiyan 4. Therefore, after Super Saiyan 3, he can only march towards the realm of Super Saiyan God, or the Super Saiyan Blue realm. Thinking of this, Suyi suddenly recalled the chance that he could transform into the next level Super Saiyan realm. Perhaps, can he use that precious opportunity to transform into a Super Saiyan God? Or the realm of Super Saiyan 4? Let's talk later. Suyi thought about it for a while, but decided not to rush to use that opportunity. After all, this opportunity is only one time, and once you use it, it will be gone. Sharu raised his head, glanced at Suyi, and said tentatively, I want to hold the world's first martial arts conference. Huh? Suyi raised his brows. Did he still move towards the plot of the original novel? I have a Saiyan militant factor in my cells, so I want to hold the world's #1 martial arts tournament. You can also participate. Sharu's eyes flashed, and he said very sincerely, of course, I have a purpose, kill them, absorb them, maybe I can have the power to match you. At this moment, Sharu's mind also became smarter, and he knew that facing a man like Suyi, that is to be honest with each other. Yes, if you kill them, I won't stop them. Suyi doesn't care, there is something like a bug like Dragon Ball, he is naturally not afraid that Sun Wukong and others will die. Moreover, he did not feel that this Sharu could pose a threat to them. It's even possible that Sharu doesn't need him. Hearing Suyi's words, Shalu suddenly became excited. See you on that island in the south in 2 days. Suyi glanced at him indifferently, and used teleportation to leave. After Suyi left for a while, Shalu got up from the ground, his eyes narrowed, a cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth, and he whispered, Scum. Sooner or later I will let you understand that the great Sharu is your life. An existence that cannot be provoked. ... At this time, on Guixian Island, Suyi spread the news that Shalu wanted to hold a martial arts conference. I'm not participating. Krillin immediately waved his hand and shook his head to reject this battle. Nonsense, as an ordinary Earthling, with a combat power of barely over 1 million, with these aliens, monsters, and perverted combat power with a combat power of over 10 billion. I am afraid that before the shot, a shock wave hits him, and he is easily smashed into scum. Well, the martial arts conference this time is very dangerous. It's better that you don't participate, Keelan. Suyi nodded in agreement and looked at Sun Wukong and Vegeta who had already woken up. This time, Wukong, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Trunks, please participate in this battle. And us. At this moment, an uninvited guest suddenly came to the Immortal Island. It was the android number 16 and them. Da da da. The sound of footsteps sounded, and 3 people walked in outside the Guixian house. We will also participate in the martial arts conference this time. The speaker is android number 17, his personality is more cheerful, android number 16 and 18 are a bit dull. Of course, number 18 lazily looked at Suyi with the same tenderness. Are all 3 of you going to participate? Suyi glanced at lazily. This woman was wearing a punk black and white outfit today, with her slightly short blonde hair, she was simply stunning. That's right. No, 17 nodded. Lazuli, don't participate, women can stand behind men and be protected. Suyi said lightly. Hearing this, the audience was stunned. Lazuli blinked her beautiful big eyes, and when everyone's eyes swept over, her pretty face suddenly turned red with a swoosh. You, Suyi, you. The woman lowered her head and called Suyi's name in a low voice, intermittently, and she knew she was very shy just by hearing the tone. Suyi smiled indifferently, he understood that he had to be direct with a woman like Lazuli. Come behind me and let me protect you from now on. Suyi stretched out his hand and smiled slightly. 5.0. As soon as these words came out, Lazuli's body with her head bowed trembled for a while, then she raised her head and glanced at Suyi softly. She bit her lip in a blink of an eye. Her cheeks were ruddy in vain. She turned around and ran out Shy Turtle House. In this regard, Suyi scratched his head. It was indeed beyond his expectation that Lazuli would be so shy. With all eyes on him, Suyi coughed twice and said lightly, "In that case, add 2 androids number 16 and number 17. This battle is about your future. Within 2 days, you will be. It's better to have some tacit understanding." "How about the rules of battle?" Sun Wukong asked a question. "It's very simple, you gang up on Sharu alone." Suyi smiled. 63. The way of Tai Chi is to break with stillness, and to respond to all changes with no change. Gang fight. Sharu, alone. Hearing Suyi's words, Kaylin and the others wanted to laugh, but couldn't. Obviously, this is a sad story. The strength of Sun Wukong and others is well known. These monsters need group fights to fight against Sharu. Isn't this one-on-one abuse to be out of the shadows? Huh. As arrogant as Vegeta, he just snorted coldly, and did not object to the rules of Suyi's martial arts conference. If he really asks him to fight Sharu alone, I am afraid that he will lose in minutes. Okay, there are still 2 days left. Everyone try to run in as much as possible. Suyi said with a smile, and these 2 days, let me take the place of Shalu and give you the first training. As soon as these words came out, Kaylin and the others were stunned for a moment, then turned to look at Piccolo with a stiff face, and secretly laughed. Not long ago, they heard Piccolo say that he didn't want to be trained by Suyi when he died, and the result came so soon. Can I not participate in this martial arts tournament? Piccolo hesitated for a moment, then raised his hand and shouted. Suyi instantly fixed his gaze on him, narrowed his eyes, and said with a smile, "Vic, do you think it's possible? Wait a minute, you will be the first to imitate me to fight." Piccolo, Monkey King, Vegeta, Trunks, Son Gohan, Cyborg number 16, Cyborg number 17, these guys are all quest points for him to earn exchange points. Can Suyi let them not participate in this martial arts conference? Obviously not possible. With a total of 7 people, Suyi wondered that this training would not only increase their combat power by a notch, but would at least allow him to earn 200,000 to 300,000 exchange points. The best of both worlds, just don't be too pretty. Hearing Suyi's words, Piccolo's face turned green instantly. Of course, his face was green in itself, but it was much greener now than before. Soon, a group of people came to a small island not far from Guixian Island. 2 days are quite tight. Suyi is going to take a one-on-one beating. No, train them one-on-one first, and then let them unite and fight against him. With his current strength and full blast, he can easily deal with these guys one-on-one. If they unite, I am afraid that he will need to transform into Super Saiyan 2. The first one, Piccolo, was directly beaten about 20 times within 10 minutes. The second, Vegeta, was beaten 30 times within half an hour. Third, Trunks. Soon enough, the first round of beatings was over. The 250,000 exchange points arrived in the account, and Suyi saw that this group of guys with bruised noses and swollen faces were extraordinarily kind. Everyone distribute the super fairy beans, and then unite to besiege me together. Suyi distributed the super fairy beans, and the whole person became serious. The teaming of 7 people is a small challenge for him. A small challenge for him in Super Saiyan 1 state. A group of people regained their strength and slowly flew into the sky one by one. Suyi looked at them calmly, very calm. The first one who couldn't hold back his shot was Vegeta. He rushed over quickly and punched Suyi continuously with both fists. Both his momentum and strength were very powerful. However, in Suyi, it was blocked with great ease. Although everyone on the side saw Suyi slowly retreating in the sky, they all understood that this was not Vegeta pressing Suyi to fight. So easy. At this time, Suyi was in this posture. Facing Vegeta's attack, he seemed very calm. It's my turn. After defending for a while, Suyi calmly punched. Boom. Vegeta confronted him and also punched. Ah! With this blow, Vegeta flew upside down. Are you watching a play? Suyi glanced at Sun Wukong and the others, his face gloomy. If I were Sharu at this time, wouldn't the first Vegeta who rushed up was already dead? Hearing Suyi's scolding, Sun Wukong and the others finally came back to their senses and hurriedly attacked him. As for Trunks, he ran to Vegeta with a super fairy bean. I can still fight, and the super fairy beans can be kept first. Vegeta flew out of the ruins of the mountain, a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, but his expression was much more determined, and Suyi, who stared at the sky and calmly dealt with the other 5 people, was full of fighting intent. Go! Vegeta drank and immediately rose into the sky. Trunks on the ground was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly put away the super fairy beans, also soared into the sky, and went straight to Suyi to attack. Boom! Boom! The sound of various Qigong cannons detonating the audience sounded. Suyi responded calmly, without a trace of panic at all. Breaking with stillness, and responding to all changes with no change, this is the way of Tai Chi. The faster you are, the slower he is. As the saying goes, in the world of martial arts, only fast is not broken. But in front of Tai Chi, the higher you are, the faster you will lose. The way of Tai Chi is very stable in the state of mind and is famous for protracted battles. 7 people besieged one person and fought for more than 10 minutes. Suyi didn't consume any physical strength. Instead, Sun Wukong and the others were breathing heavily, sweat all over their foreheads and backs. Your strength is indeed good, but the degree of cooperation is not enough. Just like now. Boom. Suyi's eyes flashed, his 5 fingers were squeezed together, and he attacked suddenly, hitting Sun Wufan in the nearest neutral position, and then 4 fingers bent to shock Wufan's chest, and then clenched his fist and slammed Sun Wufan directly. Gohan flew a few hundred meters and charged away near the mountains. Gudong. Seeing this scene, Kaylin and the others who were watching below swallowed a mouthful of saliva involuntarily. This is the real martial arts, physical strength, and the use of Qi, the power caused by it is so terrifying. Quickly defeating Sun Wuhan, Suyi moved behind Sun Wukong with a teleportation, and blasted out a Qigong cannon, which also blasted him hundreds of meters away. Companion, you want to protect your back. Vegeta, you can't. Suyi's figure turned again, an indifferent voice sounded in Vegeta's ear, and then a shock wave came, which also blasted him out. In just a few breaths, only 4 of the 7 people besieging Suyi remained. This is still my Super Saiyan 1 state, you guys, too weak. Suyi shook his head and sighed. He thought that these 7 people would be helpful to his Super Saiyan 1 state, but it didn't. You must know that Sharu's strength is barely able to force out his Super Saiyan 2, but these guys can't even beat his Super Saiyan 1, what are they doing to deal with Sharu 2 days later? Martial Arts Conference. 64. As soon as Super 2 comes out, I will accompany Xiaoluli to hold a parent meeting. Hearing Suyi's words, everyone was silent for a while. At this moment, a powerful momentum burst out. It's Vegeta. Also, Sun Wukong, and Sun Wufan. Ah da 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 da. Sun Wukong, Vegeta and Sun Wufan rushed over and started punching and kicking Suyi. Suyi still resisted calmly, punching back from time to time. Go. Piccolo rushed forward with a warlike expression on his face. For a time, 7 people besieged again. This time, with Suyi's scolding before, everyone became more serious, took care of each other, and shot at Suyi at the same time. Under the joint attack of the changed people, Suyi was calm from the beginning, but gradually felt a little more difficult. However, he still can't force him to transform into Super Saiyan 2 state. The 8 people fought for about half an hour. Suyi stepped back more than 10 meters, spread out his limbs, and roared. The powerful momentum directly shook everyone away more than 10 meters away. Super Saiyan 2. Everyone's eyes narrowed, and the fighting intent on their faces became much deeper. Lightning wrapped around his body, crackling and crackling. Suyi glanced at Sun Wukong and the others indifferently, and then moved in front of them in an instant. In the blink of an eye, all 7 of them were blasted to the ground by him. This time's training is over. I will practice on my own tomorrow. Follow me to find this fellow Sharu the day after tomorrow. After blasting Sun Wukong and others, Suyi did not continue to shoot. After saying a word, he disappeared into the sky out of thin air. Suyi is not going to pay any attention to the follow-up matters. Although the 7 people are not the opponent of his Super Saiyan 2, it is strong enough to be able to force out his Super Saiyan 2. At least, if 7 people besiege Sharu, there should be no problem. Unless, this guy Sharu has evolved again. Thinking of this, Suyi, who returned to Exedu's house, thought again. Sharu can indeed evolve in the follow-up. For example, Sharu is completely runaway. This state is similar to the 3rd stage of Super Saiyan 1. Although the strength has increased a lot in all aspects, the speed is too slow. Sharu in this state is not too strong. Suyi believes that Sun Wukong and the others can deal with it. Next, the evolution is Lightning Sharu. In this state, Sharu's combat power is on the top of the table, and there is also lightning entanglement all over his body, which is equivalent to Super Saiyan 2. In fact, Suyi knew that Sharu in this state was stronger than Son Gohan of Super Saiyan 2. Therefore, Lightning Sharu's combat power should be greater than or equal to Super Saiyan 2. Daddy. At this time, Suyi, who was sitting on the sofa in the living room at home, heard the cry of the little girl Luli. What's wrong? Suyi recovered from his thoughts, looked at the precious daughter who was running towards him, with a smile on his face. Dad. Xiao Luli jumped into Suyi's arms, and then rubbed her little head against his chest. After a few seconds, she looked up at him with big eyes and said, "The school is going to hold a parent-teacher meeting, Mom. I don't have time with Xiao's mother. So." Hearing this, Suyi blinked. Bulma didn't have time. He thought there was a possibility. But this real household Akatsuki didn't have time, and he really didn't believe it. Seeing her daughter's sky-blue eyes blinking, she knew her daughter Mo Ruofu. How could Suyi not know the little girl's plan? She definitely wanted to accompany her by herself. Well, okay, what time is it today? Suyi thought for a while, and felt that she really hadn't been with Xiao Luli for so long, so she smiled and nodded. Oye, Dad is so nice, moi tilde. The little girl excitedly leaned over and kissed Suyi's face, then jumped down and turned around in a circle. She looked like a porcelain doll in a white princess dress, delicate and lovely. ... Exedu, a kindergarten named Carrie. At this moment, Suyi took the little girl's hand to the door of the kindergarten. The West is a big city with very good development. Economically, it can be said to be one of the most developed big cities on Earth. People come and go, cars come and go, and many luxury cars are parked at the gate of the kindergarten. Luli. Just as Suyi was leading the little girl to enter the kindergarten, a young boy's voice sounded. Hearing this voice, the little girl frowned, but it was as if she hadn't heard it. Did someone call you? Suyi was slightly startled, and turned to look. A young boy ran over with a mature man's hand. Luli, we meet again. At the age of 4 or 5, this little boy looks extravagant, and he should be a rich second-generation family with very good family conditions. Looking at the little girl at this time, her face was full of excitement. Suyi casually glanced at the parents of this little boy. He was about 40 years old, and he was a kind of old man. Looking at the little boy's doting face, he couldn't tell the brand of his clothes, but it must not be bad. Shiro, I said, no one is qualified to call me Luli except my parents. The little girl said with a sullen face, and didn't even put her eyes on the little boy. Hearing this, the little boy laughed twice, and the middle-aged man on the side frowned. He glanced at the little girl and found that the little girl was indeed very delicate and cute, and suddenly raised his eyes slightly to look at Suyi. Dressed up as an ordinary person, without any protruding points, and there is a tail around the waist, it looks like a monster race. Such a person would be the parent of such a little princess. Impossible. Immediately, the man's eyes lightened a lot, and he said lightly. Be careful when you talk. Hello, and it's an honor for my son to like your lady, do you know? In words, this man regarded Suyi as a servant of the little girl. Hearing this man's words, Suyi's few big black question marks appeared in his forehead. Are ordinary people in the Dragon Ball world so full of superiority? Also, what the hell is that lady of yours? Suyi blinked, met this middle-aged man with an overwhelming sense of superiority, and then hooked his fingers at him. What are you doing? You know what? It's very impolite to point your finger at someone like that. I'll tell you. The man's face was gloomy, and he spoke coldly, but just halfway through the telling, he was punched in the stomach by Suyi and held back. I'm sorry, I'm a rude person and don't have so many rules. If you upset me, then I'll beat you up. Luli, go. Suyi smiled and looked at the middle-aged man who was crying in pain and looked like a shrimp, and walked into the kindergarten with the little girl's hand. In a sense, this man should be glad he survived. After all, as an ordinary person, it is indeed a great luck to be punched in the hand of the strongest man on earth and not die. Of course, this punch took hundreds of billions. No, it should be said that it was more than a trillion strength. Anyway, no matter what, it is enough that this is a lucky ordinary person. 65. The Charm of Akatsuki Motto, Chapter 14. The little girl brought her to a classroom. Suyi saw at a glance that there were many people who were not of the human species. This should be considered a beast. This kind of human being is still common in the Dragon Ball world, and it does not cause any panic. Soon, I found a place to sit down, and after a while, the middle-aged man and the little boy I met at the school gate walked in. Gloomy eyes glanced at Suyi. The man pulled the little boy and sat down in the front row. During the parent meeting, Suyi teased the little girl from time to time, and the time just passed. In about 40 minutes, the parent-teacher meeting was over. Today is the holiday time. As soon as the parent meeting is over, the class will not continue. The father and daughter walk out of the kindergarten holding small hands. Hey! As soon as they walked out of the kindergarten, a werewolf, a tiger man, and a bear man clenched their fists and walked forward with a crisp sound of crack bang bang bang. Boy, come and chat with the three of us. The werewolf grinned, showing sharp teeth, sneered and hooked his fingers at Suyi. You are not allowed to bully Daddy. The little girl immediately broke away from Suyi's hand, and opened her small hand to stop the three orcs. Yo-ho, she's a cute little girl. Hee hee. The tiger man laughed when he saw the little girl's cute appearance. 713 Pop. Second child, we are here to trouble this kid. The bear man on the side reached out and patted the tiger man on the head, and glared at him. Oh, yes. The tiger man patted his forehead, then turned his head and glared at Suyi, and said coldly, Boy, let you leave here with us within 3 seconds, otherwise, you will be forced to walk away. Hearing this, Suyi raised his brows and said in surprise, If I don't go with you, will you let me eat and walk away? This is really funny enough. Moreover, threatening Suyi. I'm afraid it's not dead. Ah. The three orcs looked at each other and were choked by Suyi's words, not knowing what to say for a while. Stop talking nonsense, are you going with us? After a few seconds, the orcs who were not very smart glared and roared. Go away, you rascals. Before Suyi could speak, the little girl activated the father guarding mode, stepped forward and slapped it out. Under the sarcastic laughter of the three BFBB orcs, a wind blew out. Ah! The screams sounded, and the three orcs were directly blown into the sky by the wind. Huh! Seeing this, Suyi was even more surprised. How could this little girl control her chi and slap her palms? Humph! See if you bad guys dare to trouble Luli's favorite dad. The little girl raised her hand and scratched her little Chong's nose, and snorted coldly. Seeing this girl's cute appearance, Suyi smiled knowingly, reached out and hugged her into his arms, and then immediately moved away from the kindergarten door under the shocked eyes of others. At the same time, at the entrance of a small alley next to the kindergarten, the middle-aged man who was punched by Suyi before took out a small towel and kept wiping the cold sweat on his forehead. As an upper-middle-class person in the Western capital, he knew that there were experts from outside the world. Now, Suyi, who suddenly disappeared from the public, is undoubtedly not such an expert in his eyes. I actually provoke a master of this kind of existence. It's over, what if I'm worried about it? The man kept gulping, and he couldn't wipe off a single drop of sweat. Naturally, Suyi didn't know about the worries of such little people. At this time, at home. Although the little girl only stayed with him for such a short time today, her whole spirit was different. She was humming songs all the time, obviously very happy. In this regard, Suyi kept an eye on it. It seems that he still has to make time to spend more time with the little girl in the future. Not only the little girl, but Bulma and Akatsuki Mato also want to accompany her more. Well, when Sharu is solved, there will be a vacuum period for a while, and the family will go on a trip. Suyi thought about it and quickly decided. The little girl obediently went to the piano room to practice the piano, and Akira Mato quickly walked down from the second floor. Today, she is wearing an OL professional suit and a pair of shiny silk stockings wrapped around her long legs. It's not too perfect. Why do you feel like you're trying to tempt me in this outfit? Suyi coughed, his eyes swept from the feet of Akatsuki to her face, and he sighed. Ah, who is deliberately tempting you? Junto Xiao took a sip, walked over slowly, sat down beside Suyi, and whispered, I don't need to waste much when I think about cultivation, so I helped Bulma manage the company. Hearing this, Suyi laughed, leaned close to her ear and blew a soft breath. Do I have to find a chance to visit your office? The meaning of this is obvious. Akatsuki Mato understood. His heart naturally trembled, his long eyelashes fluttered a little, and the beauty was indescribable. He glared at him with a charming look, and softly said the word, bad. Men are not bad, women are not loving. Xiao, I'm going to be a bad person today. Suyi laughed loudly, got up and hugged Akira Mato before teleporting back to the bedroom. After a while, the sound of humming came, which perfectly matched the tune played by the little girl in the piano room, which seemed even more beautiful. After an hour, the battle was over. Junto Xiao snuggled in Suyi's arms and whispered, Lord Husband, why do you think I haven't conceived your baby yet? Although Akatsuki Mato treats the little girl Luli as her own daughter, she is not her own after all. Don't worry, with the lifespan obtained by our practice, there are at least a few hundred years, so much time is enough. Suyi himself didn't know why. It was also possible that the two of them were not destined to have a child for the time being. Maybe when the fate came, Akatsuki Mato would naturally become pregnant. Akatsuki Mato responded softly like a cat meowing, and then slowly retracted into the bed. Hi. Immediately afterwards, Suyi sucked in a breath of cold air and sounded in the bedroom. 66. Terrifying Super Saiyan 3. 2 days passed quickly. At around 9 o'clock in the morning, Suyi got up and washed and came to Guixian Island. Immortal Turtle and the others hadn't gotten up yet, and they all slept like dead pigs. Especially this guy Oolong. That snoring is not too scary. When no one was there, Suyi ran to a nearby island by himself and began to transform into a Super Saiyan 3 state. As a result, Sun Wukong and others were alerted in a short time. To her calf, and her face changing a bit, all of them were instantly stunned. Is this really Uncle Suyi? Trunks and Son Gohan looked at Suyi in Super Saiyan 3 form in shock and exclaimed. Suyi saw this group of guys, return to normal, came to them, and said with a light smile, looking at your casual appearance, it really doesn't feel like a decisive battle is going to be at all. Brother Suyi, what was your transformation just now? Sun Wukong hesitated again and again, and finally couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked. Super Saiyan 3. Suyi smiled and didn't hide it. Super. Piccolo widened his eyes and opened his mouth in disbelief. Saiyan 3. On the other hand, Son Gohan was also shocked when he took Piccolo's words. How many forms does Super Saiyan have? After Sun Wukong was shocked, he excitedly asked. This is. Suyi was not very good at speaking for a while, thought for a while, then shook his head and said, these will be known when you reach this point. Moreover, the form of Saiyans is not fixed. For example, it is possible that I can transform into a Super Saiyan. People 3, it's also possible that you can't transform into Super Saiyan 3. Quote. This kind of thing is really difficult to explain, it is better to wait for the plot to slowly go down, and they will naturally know that they have reached that state themselves. Okay. Sun Wukong is no longer entangled, nodded, and his heart is even more determined to practice hard and transform into Super Saiyan 2 as soon as possible. Let's go, the people are almost here. The android number 16 should know the specific location. Let's go to the venue and wait for them. After Suyi said this, the eyebrows disappeared directly in place. Sun Wukong followed suit, with the same eyebrows, and disappeared in place. The remaining group of people stared at each other, and finally flew away from the island reluctantly. Soon, on a small island in the south of Guixian Island, Suyi floated in the air with his hands behind his back, looking down at a large open space below. He searched for a minute or two, and finally decided to use this open space as the arena for the decisive battle. System, exchange for a magic circle for me. Suyi sank into the system mall space and asked the system to exchange a magic circle for him. 100,000 exchange points to exchange for a one-time magic circle. Even Suyi, who thinks he has a lot of money, is also a little bit painful, and he is very reluctant. But thinking about it carefully, he still felt that it was worthwhile to exchange 100,000 exchange points for the safety of the entire Earth. After all, what if these guys burst out with some amazing strength and accidentally blow up the Earth? So, there is always no harm in taking precautions. Soon, the magic circle fell, shrouding the entire island in it. Now, let alone 100 billion level of combat power, it will destroy the Earth. It is a 10 trillion combat power level. I am afraid that they will not be able to destroy the Earth. After a while, Piccolo and others came one after another, and the androids number 16, number 17, and number 18 also came. When everyone is here, Sharu is the only one left. Drink. Suyi's aura exploded all over his body, and when he transformed into Super Saiyan 3, his combat power exceeded the 600 billion mark, which was unparalleled. Too strong. Androids number 16 and number 17 are trembling, and their eyes are full of blankness. Why is the Saiyan race so powerful? As for number 18 lazily, she looked at Suyi with glowing eyes, and she became more and more obsessed with this man. There is no woman who doesn't worship a powerful man, let alone this woman has a little interest in Suyi. From the end to now, from Lazile's expression, anyone could see that he was obviously deeply attracted by Suyi. Sharu, get out of here. Suyi roared angrily, the sound was like thunder, which made everyone in the vicinity startled, and hurriedly covered his ears and cast a speechless look at Suyi. This voice, if it is a timid person, I am afraid that it is really possible to be frightened or scared of a heart attack. Katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Call out. 3 seconds after Suyi's voice fell, a sound of breaking through the air instantly sounded, and a figure flashed over. Lord Suyi, I am here. This figure is Sharu. At this time, he looked bland, without the tyrannical feeling he had a few days ago. His breath was restrained, and he felt very calm. This kind of thing belongs to the category of not breaking out, and when it breaks out, it is absolute terror. Suyi noticed Sharu's slight changes. He saw the fear in this guy, but he lost the previous fear. So, does this guy have any trump cards? Okay, everyone has arrived, let's start the fight. This small island is currently shrouded in a magic circle, and in this, he is basically an overlord. So, in fact, no matter what trump card this Shalu has, Suyi is not panic at all. More than 600 billion combat power can't suppress you. Bro. Is it not enough to suppress you by means of suppressing people with more than 1 trillion combat power? With a wave of his hand, the passers-by such as Kaylin were detached from the magic circle that was shrouded in it. This scene made Sun Wukong and the others slightly startled. It was Sharu, and at this moment, his heart was stunned for a while. Immediately afterwards, an inexplicable panic rose from beneath him. This Suyi's method is really amazing. Suyi, your hand is too amazing. Kaylin exclaimed constantly on the side. Before he came, he had thought about whether they would be implicated in the aftermath of the battle if they watched the battle. Now, Suyi's hand has directly relieved those who watched the battle from worries. Suyi smiled and didn't explain anything. For something worth 100,000 points, if he didn't get arrogant, he would probably die even more painfully. Soon, the atmosphere on the field became much more dignified. Standing in their respective positions, Sharu was surrounded by himself in the middle. The battle seems to be imminent. 67. Sharu without any flaws. The atmosphere was deadlocked for about 2 or 3 minutes, and no one of the 8 people started the first time. Just like the fight against Suyi 2 days ago, Vegeta couldn't hold back his violent temper and made a strong shot. Vegeta moved, and Trunks moved immediately. In an instant, Sun Wukong, father and son plus Piccolo also linked up. Scum. Facing Suyi, Shalu was just a dog, he dared not to bark in anger, and this anger only dared to be angry in his heart. However, in the face of Vegeta's scum, he naturally swelled too much. Vegeta rushed over, Sharu just took a step forward on the ground, and punched out, and then I saw his figure turned into several lines. This is the afterimage fist, a small trick of Xiao Wukong. Boom. Vegeta was punched and instantly transformed into Super Saiyan 1 under the pain, and then charged up again. Vegeta, be steady. 630. Piccolo snorted. Vegeta, who was already impulsive, snorted coldly, and did not listen to Piccolo at all, and attacked forcefully. However, in front of Sharu, all attacks seemed weak. Don't forget, Sharu has Vegeta's cells and naturally knows them very well, so he basically knows a few of everyone's flaws. Boom. While dealing with Vegeta, Sharu still had time to fight with Trunks who rushed over from the side, and even had time to avoid the turtle Qigong waves released by Sun Wukong and Sun Wuhan on the side. For a while, there was a deadlock in the field. The situation is not optimistic. Off the field, Krillin frowned. Although his strength is not comparable to anyone on the field, he is still a veteran with rich combat experience, so he can still see and analyze the situation on the field. Just like against Suyi 2 days ago, their combined strengths do have the possibility of being able to compete with Sharu. However, the lack of fit is the first point. The second point comes from Vegeta, who is too inflated with self-confidence. In a word, this guy is the kind of person who is reckless. Goku, take a step back, let Vegeta and Sharu consume it and see if they can grind him. Piccolo suddenly persuaded them. Anyway, they have super fairy beans. As long as they don't have the qualifications to kill them in an instant, it will cost money. When Sun Wukong heard Piccolo's words, he frowned, thought for a moment, nodded and stepped back. In an instant, the 6 people gathered together. Since Vegeta wants to be his hero, let him be. Perhaps, they saw the flaws of this Sharu from the side, and maybe they would win by uniting. Outside the arena, Suyi raised his brows when he saw this scene, and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. To be honest, Piccolo's command made him look a little different. This wave of command made him see the wisdom of this guy Piccolo, using the convenience of Super Fairy Bean to kill Sharu fearlessly. This is the first point. The second point, Vegeta procrastinated by himself, although it was only a little time, maybe they could let them see the flaws of this fellow Sharu. Good, good. Suyi nodded and praised, this commanding ability is indeed worthy of praise. Everyone looked towards the field, Vegeta and Sharu looked at each other. Sharu, show your true strength to fight with me. If you dare to underestimate this uncle, be careful and kill you directly. Vegeta is very arrogant and authentic. Oh, little reptile, dare to provoke me. Sharu smiled coldly, not irritated by Vegeta's words. He knew that Vegeta was a man, and his bravery was just an illusion on the surface, he just always wanted to crush him with absolute strength. From the arrogant words just now, it is not difficult to see that this man is trying to anger himself on purpose, so that he can reveal his flaws after being angered. But, is Sharu stupid? Obviously not stupid. Vegeta rushed up again, with golden flames all over her body, and her whole body looked like a god of war. Bang bang bang. The two punched against each other, one pressing aggressively, the other guarding calmly. Too weak, too weak. Sharu defended Vegeta's attack with only one hand, taking time to try to disturb his mood with sarcastic words. The effect is obvious, Vegeta fell into a state of rage, punching harder than punching, and a Qigong cannon consuming more energy than a Qigong cannon. That fool. Piccolo shook his head and smiled bitterly when he saw Vegeta, who was attacking very fast. This guy really can't make the plan, and it's ridiculous enough. In the center of the field, Sharu probably didn't want to play with Vegeta anymore. He raised his hand and punched it out. It was just a very simple punch. However, the bombardment hit Vegeta, and it blew him out directly. Call out. Teleport. Sharu actually used the ability to teleport, and in the blink of an eye, he reached behind Vegeta, who flew out, clasped his hands together, and smashed Vegeta's head hard. Boom. Vegeta was fired like a cannonball, and then fell to the ground with a bang, causing a burst of dust, and a bottomless crater appeared on the ground. Dad! Trunks roared, and instantly transformed into a Super Saiyan state, pulling out the divine sword behind him and killing Sharu. Beat the big ones to the small ones, oh, scum. Sharu sneered and shook his head. Instead of retreating, he moved forward, easily fighting the divine sword swung by Trunks with one finger. Dang dang. As if the sound of metal colliding sounded in the field, everyone saw that sparks were sputtering in the sky. Sharu's physical strength should not be underestimated. Piccolo squinted his eyes and analyzed it, and exclaimed in a cold voice, I really haven't seen any flaws in this guy so far. Perfect. These two words emerged from the bottom of Piccolo's heart. At least, in their eyes, this Sharu is very perfect, just like Suyi, who is also invisible to him, 360 degrees, and there is no dead angle at all. It's terrifying. Android 17 finally opened his mouth and said the first sentence. His face was full of fear, he never felt. No, this guy Sharu is the second person he feels hopeless. 1.6. The first one was Suyi, who was outside the arena at this time. What to do? This guy has absolutely no dead ends, how do we break this guy? Son Gohan asked. Hit hard. After waiting for a while, Trunks in the sky was hit by a shock cannon from Sharu and fainted, and Sun Wukong said solemnly, Gohan, save Vegeta and Trunks and let them eat. Put down the Super Fairy Beans. When the 7 of us gather to besiege this guy, we will definitely be able to find a flaw in him. Since he couldn't find a flaw, Sun Wukong's idea was to make a flaw even if he fought. In short, if it doesn't work once, then twice, if it doesn't work twice, then 3 times. The second update is sent, today, work hard for the 6th update, and look forward to the 7th update. Still the same sentence, subscription is not good, update it to make up, work hard. This book will definitely not be a eunuch. 68. Number 16 who died blocking damage, wake up, Gohan. Sun Wukong turned into a Super Saiyan and started to drag the time, and Piccolo and others followed him to cover him. Son Gohan listened to his father's words and hurriedly flew to the place where Trunks fell to the ground, quickly fed him a Super Fairy Bean, and then headed towards the position of Vegeta in the deep pit. Flew over. However, when Sun Wukong arrived, Vegeta, who was covered in injuries, flew out of the deep pit, glanced at Sun Wukong coldly, and said indifferently, "Eating Super Fairy Beans is cowardly. It is absolutely impossible for Prince Vegeta to eat this Super Bean." Quote. After saying this, Vegeta transformed into a Super Saiyan and charged into the sky. Boom. In less than 3 seconds, Vegeta was shot down again. Getting up with difficulty, Vegeta came to Son Gohan with a gloomy face, spread out his hands and said coldly, "Give me Super Fairy Beans." This reversal made Sun Wukong's eyes widen, and his face was astonished. "Give me Super Fairy Beans." Vegeta's voice was much colder. "Huh, oh, okay, Uncle Vegeta." Sun Wukong came back to his senses and hurriedly took out a Super Fairy Bean and threw it to Vegeta. Cluck bang, cluck bang. Vegeta took it and put it in his mouth and chewed it. Soon, all the injuries on his body were gone, and his mental state and strength were 25% better than before. "Chopsticks, I'm going to kill you." Vegeta's low voice sounded, as if roaring, angrily declaring her oath. Seeing this scene, Su Yi, who was outside the venue, burst out laughing. True fragrance, scene of a boy surnamed Wong in the previous life. Naturally, other people don't know about this stock, and it's a little strange why Su Yi suddenly laughed. "Su Yi, do you think Wukong and the others have a chance to win?" Krillin took a deep breath and asked a question. At present, the only person who has an authoritative voice is Su Yi, so he wants to hear this man's point of view. "I don't know." Su Yi shrugged, he really didn't know what the outcome of this battle was. According to the plot of the original book, Sharu will definitely die. However, judging from the current development, it really doesn't look like you can kill this guy in one go. It may even be possible to reveal Sharu's real trump card. I'm afraid it's Sun Wukong and other 7 people who died, right? However, all this is not easy to say. Seeing that Su Yi was not sure, Kaylin and others naturally fell silent, no longer asked anything, and focused on looking at the arena. In the field, Sharu easily coped with the siege of 7 people, and everything seemed so calm. This is not difficult to see, this guy's strength is indeed different from what it looks like on the surface. You must know that although Sharu at the current stage has evolved into a complete body, his true strength has not yet erupted. That's it, at present his apparent combat power is also a terrifying existence at the level of 80 billion. With more than half an hour before the siege started, Sharu should not want to play anymore. He burst out with momentum, and shot suddenly, no one could resist his seemingly light fist. In an instant, everyone was defeated. The first one, who to kill first? Sharu, who landed from the sky, carried his hands behind his back and slowly walked towards the 7 fallen people. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced at Su Yi outside the arena, worried whether he would make a move. However, when he saw that he did not move, Sharu laughed. Su Yi, Wukong and the others are defeated. Seeing Shalu walking towards Sun Wukong and the others, Keilin's expression changed suddenly, and he hurriedly turned his head and shouted to Su Yi. Su Yi glanced at him and ignored it. Su Yi. Yamcha also shouted anxiously. Don't be noisy. Tianjin Fan glanced at the expressionless Su Yi, scolded him aloud, and said calmly, Su Yi will not sit idly by. He believes that Wukong and the others will burst out in a desperate situation. Hearing this, Keilin and Yamcha closed their mouths and looked nervously at the arena. Da da da. The sound of Sharu's footsteps fell in the ears of everyone in the field, like the footsteps of the god of death. No, this should indeed be the footsteps of the god of death. The sound of falling every step made the unwillingness on their faces deepen. In the end, Sharu walked for about 3 minutes before arriving at a distance of about 100 meters. The first. Sharu stretched out his finger and swept past the 7 people like a king, and finally turned around twice, and his finger was assigned to Sun Wukong. It's you. Sharu stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, with a wicked smile on his face. At the same time, his fingertips lit up with a ray of light. Gohan. Sun Wukong tried his best to stand up, trying to block this attack for Sun Wukong. However, he found that he couldn't raise his body, so he could only watch Sharu's attack unleashed. No. The attack came out, and Sun Wukong roared. Boom. A dazzling light flickered, followed by an explosion. Number 10, 16. After more than 10 seconds, the fog generated by the explosion dissipated, revealing a tall figure, which was the android number 16. And he blocked Sun Gohan with his own body. You are still young, you shouldn't have suffered such a scene, so you can't die. Cyborg number 16 showed a loving smile, and reached out his hand as if he wanted to touch Gohan's head, but before he could touch it, he fell to the ground with a bang. Scum, how dare you sabotage my goal? Seeing this scene, Shalu's face darkened instantly. He stepped forward, and in an instant he arrived in front of the fallen android number 16, stepped down and smashed his head. Seeing this scene, Gohan's eyes instantly turned red, and tears couldn't stop collapsing from his eyes. Cry, little reptile, I'll let you cry a little longer. Shalu laughed wildly in the sky, very arrogant. Ah! Little Gohan bit his lip tightly, crouched down on the ground and roared, and he slowly got up with strength, and the momentum on his body gradually increased. Climbed up. Yes, the potential of the little reptile is really great. However, you are about to die. Sharu sneered and stretched out a finger, and the fingertip flashed a dazzling light again. Outside the arena, Kaylin and the others' faces changed dramatically, and they shouted angrily, Gohan, run! Run! Suyi heard their roars, and when he saw this scene again, his eyes narrowed, and the corners of his mouth evoked a playful sneer. Do run! However, the one who ran should probably be this Sharu. Because, a terrifying and powerful aura had already risen in Gohan's body. I'm going to kill you. Boom! As Son Gohan roared, he instantly transformed into a Super Saiyan. However, the Super Saiyan that Son Gohan transformed into this time is different from before. At this moment, there were lightning bolts all over his body, and there was a crackling sound. Seeing this scene, the pupils of everyone on and off the field shrank. This is 2 that Suyi once showed. 69. Gohan is powerful, hunt down Sharu. Super Saiyan 2. Vegeta, who was on the side, saw this scene, his eyes widened, and he roared in disbelief, why? How can such a small child be transformed into Super Saiyan 2? In comparison, the potential of this Son Gohan is not much stronger than that of his son Trunks. Gohan. Sun Wukong was also very shocked, but he was more happy and relieved in his heart. His son surpassed himself. As a father, this is indeed a very happy thing. Sharu. At this time, Sun Wukong's expression was extremely indifferent, and he was not at all like the usual him. He walked slowly and heavily towards Sharu, with electric lights flashing all over his body, which would set off a little god of war. Suyi nodded and laughed from the sidelines. At present, the strength of Son Gohan's outbreak is far greater than the 100 combat power increase that Super Saiyan 2 should have. Although it is not the realm of mysterious Gohan, his transformation is still stronger than ordinary the Super Saiyan 2. It seems that in the initial setting, the old man really wanted Gohan to replace Goku as the protagonist. Suyi was amazed. The setting of Sun Wukong during this period is undoubtedly not the template of the protagonist who will be pushed all the way. He believed that if it wasn't for the influence of Wukong so deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, the lunch that was thrown into the cold palace would not have been reduced to a wild game in the follow-up. If it becomes the protagonist, it is more likely to be the name of Shenfen. A pity indeed. Suyi sighed inwardly and looked at the field again. At the current stage, Sun Gohan easily suppressed the complete Sharu without any difficulty at all. Bang bang bang. He punched Sharu flesh with a punch, and a mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth. Too powerful. Is this really Gohan? Everyone was shocked. The strength of Sun Gohan in Super Saiyan 2 state is too terrifying. Escape. Now I am not his opponent. Sharu panicked. He knew that his strength was definitely not the opponent of Sun Gohan in Super Saiyan 2 state at this time. Damn it. A hairy boy actually made this king want to escape. Sharu roared in his heart, but he couldn't do anything no matter how angry he was. Facing Sun Gohan, who was in a state of rage and Super Saiyan 2, he was as powerless as he was facing Suyi. Gohan, Sharu wants to escape. Diaresis. Piccolo suddenly exclaimed, reminding Sun Gohan. He can't escape. Sun Gohan has absolute confidence that Sharu can't escape, because he is very fast and can easily catch up with this guy. However, Sun Gohan forgot a very important point: Sharu will move instantly. Therefore, after Sharu released a smoke-like shock cannon, he directly used teleportation and disappeared in place. But it is worth mentioning that no matter how this Sharu escaped by teleportation, he could not do without Suyi's magic circle and could only curl up on this small island. Damn! Sun Wukong roared, turned around and came to the corpse of the android number 16, bowed deeply. Number 16, I'm sorry, I couldn't avenge you. But don't worry, I will still kill this Sharu. Yes. Soon, Sun Wukong took out the super fairy beans for Sun Wukong and others to eat, and the group of 7 became 6 people, and everyone was a little sentimental for a while. What should I do? This Sharu will move instantly and can easily escape. The recovered people discussed it, and Piccolo frowned. At this time, Suyi's voice came from outside the arena into the arena. This island is the battlefield, and he can't escape. Hearing this, everyone was stunned, and then Sun Wukong's face was filled with joy. At this time, he still maintained the state of Super Saiyan 2, as if his physical strength was infinite, and he did not fall back to normal. Very well, let me hunt down this guy. Sun Gohan said calmly. But will this state of yours last for a long time? Sun Wukong asked aloud. Dad, don't worry, I already feel like I can transform into a Super Saiyan 2 realm at will. Sun Gohan smiled. As soon as these words came out, Vegeta's face turned gloomy. Thinking that he is a noble Saiyan prince, a man with infinite potential, can't compare to this guy Kakarot enough to make him angry. Now, he can't even compare to the son of this guy Kakarot. Gohan, come on. Sun Wukong clenched his fists, cheering for him. Dad, Uncle Vegeta, Uncle Piccolo, Trunks, Uncle number 17, I'm going to search for Sharu's location first. Sun Gohan flew to the sky, and then searched all around. Under normal circumstances, as long as Sharu doesn't reveal his breath, Sun Gohan can't find his location, but with Suyi's help outside the field, Sharu's breath is revealed for no reason. Where? Sun Wukong glanced around with a pair of eyes, and sensed Sharu's breath with his heart. In the end, he sensed that Sharu was hiding in a mountain. Boom! Sun Wukong blasted out the shock cannons from his hand, bombarding the mountain wildly. However, Sharu, who was hidden inside, was not forced out. Strange. Did I sense it wrong? After bombing for a long time, Sun Wukong frowned, and his eyes showed doubts, feeling very strange. Logically speaking, with such a big shock, this Sharu absolutely couldn't bear it and wanted to run away. Now, he bombed for at least a few minutes. He blasted this mountain away, and piles of waste rocks gathered together. It would be absolutely dead to be an ordinary person. Here, Vegeta heard the sound, and immediately set off and flew towards Sun Gohan. Seeing this, Sun Wukong and the others looked at each other, thought for a while, and flew over. A group of people arrived, and at this time, Sun Wukong seemed to have noticed Sharu's hiding place, flew to the waste rock pile, and then calmly sent out a turtle Qigong wave. Boom! The waste rock pile exploded in an instant, and then Sharu's figure huddled in a corner appeared. Diaresis, damn! Why can you sense my existence, you stinky boy? Sharu was furious. It was a shame to be chased and killed by a little brat. Now he has closed his breath. How did this guy know his location? Escape. Without waiting for Son Gohan to react, Sharu dodged and teleported 100 meters away in an instant. Damn it! Why can't I use teleportation to leave this island? Sharu was completely panicked and could not leave the island, so what awaited him must be death. Drag a while, this kid's physical strength is gradually weakening, and I have clearly felt his combat effectiveness is declining. Shalu looked back, Lee's good, gritted his teeth, and used teleportation again, but every time he used it, he found that he could move at most 100 meters, which made him very uncomfortable. So, just like this, one chased, the other fled. Son Gohan released a shock cannon from time to attack Sharu, and every time he hit, Sharu was in constant pain. About an hour later, Sun Wukong had returned to his normal state and fell directly in midair. Sun Wukong, who had been chasing after him, hurriedly stepped forward and hugged Sun Wukong, looking at his small face with a look of relief on his face. Dad, I'm too weak to avenge number 16. Quote. Gohan closed his eyes and murmured softly. No, Gohan, you did a great job, you are amazing. Sun Wukong praised. Hearing Sun Wukong's praise, Xiao Wufan showed a small smile on his face, and then passed out completely. 70. The tyrannical Vegeta, Sharu returns to his state. Without Suyi's help, Sun Wukong naturally couldn't trace Sharu's specific location, so a group of people guarded Sun Wuhan. What's next? Piccolo looked at the last Super Fairy Bean and said solemnly, if we don't get rid of this guy Sharu quickly, I'm afraid it's not just number 16 who will die, but we can't escape bad luck. Take a rest, Sharu will definitely not be able to fight in a short time. So, keep this last Super Fairy Bean. Sun Wukong thought for a while and said. Okay. The rest of the people also have no opinion. Seriously, I know Gohan's potential is very strong. However, he turned into Super Saiyan 2 earlier than you guys, which really shocked me. Piccolo looked at the sleeping Son Gohan with an incredible look on his face, and couldn't help but marvel. Yeah, I didn't expect Gohan to turn into Super Saiyan 2 before me and Vegeta. Sun Wukong sighed. Huh. Vegeta, who was on the side, snorted coldly and flew away from the place. Very proud, he was naturally unconvinced, and now he was going to find him and kill him while Sharu was injured. Since he is currently at his peak, he is also very confident in killing Sharu, who was injured. Trunks opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he sighed and let Vegeta leave the position where he was searching for Sharu. Dad, he's too strong. Trunks smiled wryly and shook his head. If he wasn't so strong in the future and knew how to be flexible, I'm afraid he would still be alive at this time. Speaking of which, he smiled again and again. ... While Sun Wukong and the others were discussing, on Vegeta's side, he glanced around and finally settled on the top of a big mountain. It's a shame for the noble Saiyan prince to be surpassed by the son of an inferior warrior. Vegeta opened her hands and roared into the sky, her aura rapidly inflated and exploded, much stronger than before. Damn it. Ah. Boom. Vegeta bombarded the energy cannon at the nearby mountains like crazy, and the mountains collapsed. At this moment, a figure flew out from one of the large mountain waste rocks that had been knocked down. Is it Sharu? Vegeta's eyes narrowed, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Feng Shui turns, he was beaten by this scum before, now, it's his turn to take revenge. Sharu, die! Vegeta roared angrily and flew to chase after Sharu. Damn it, it's really maddening me to be dragged away by this little reptile. Sharu looked back at the amazing Vegeta and gritted his teeth for a while. Wait a minute, in more than 10 minutes, Pix cells will be able to recover from my injuries. Then, this reptile will die. Sharu thought coldly in his heart, so now he just needs to avoid the energy cannon launched by Vegeta as much as possible, and run away to delay the time. Chopsticks, wasn't it so powerful before? It's not the point of running away now. Vegeta has now been swept away by anger, plus the previous suffocation, and now he is completely different from him. In other words, his own evil spirit has not dissipated. Otherwise, how could he in the future Buu space be invaded and controlled by Babidi? As time passed, Sharu gradually recovered a lot. His speed also slowly decreased. This guy is fishing. He believed that Vegeta would definitely think he was exhausted. In fact, his state has actually recovered 9 times out of 10, and the injuries on his body are slowly recovering. Hey, Vegeta, it's fun to chase for so long, isn't it? Just wait, in a minute, it's your time of disaster. Sharu is very cautious, and it stands to reason that his current strength is enough to obliterate Vegeta, but he is afraid of Son Cfec, Gohan in the Super Saiyan 2 realm. Therefore, when he recovers, even if he can't beat him, he can escape. 1 minute passed quickly, and Sharu's state completely returned to its peak. At the same time, Sharu also stopped, folded his arms around his chest, turned around and looked at Vegeta who was chasing after him with an indifferent attitude, and there was a faint sneer at the corner of his mouth, which made Vegeta's heart skip a beat. You recovered. Vegeta exclaimed when she saw that Sharu's injuries had recovered. Oh, you forgot. I have big cells, and the ability to recover from injuries is very powerful. Sharu laughed, stretched out a finger, hooked Vegeta, and said coldly, now, your disaster is here. Call out. The voice fell, and an energy cannon was ejected from Sharu's fingertips. Boom. The speed was so fast that Vegeta didn't react at all, and was blasted hundreds of meters away. A reptile is a reptile after all. Sharu dodged and reached behind Vegeta in an instant, and the palm of his hand pointed at him, and another energy cannon blasted out. Ah! Vegeta screamed in pain, and Sharu, who had recovered, was no match for him. But within a few breaths, he was directly bombarded to the ground, not knowing his life or death. Oops! At the same time, Wukong, who had been taking care of Son Gohan, suddenly changed his face and jumped out of the ground. Vegeta's chi is very weak. This is, on the verge of death. What? Trunks' expression changed, and he also jumped up from the ground. After sensing it carefully, he hurriedly flew in the direction of Vegeta. Trunks! Son Wukong shouted. Uncle Wukong, I have to save Dad. Trunks turned back solemnly. I'll accompany you. Son Wukong glanced at Gohan who was still in a coma, got up and followed Trunks and flew towards Vegeta. Place, Piccolo and the Android 17 stared wide-eyed, not knowing what to do. How about, give the last super bean to Gohan? After a while of silence, the Android 17 opened his mouth and proposed a sentence. Piccolo pondered. At present, apart from Suyi, who is Sharu's opponent, I am afraid that Gohan in Super Saiyan 2 state is the only one left. Suyi, who is trying to train them, is naturally impossible to take action, so if he really wants to live, he must be turned into Super Saiyan 2 by Son Gohan. But, it's the last Super Fairy Bean. If this Gohan doesn't kill Sharu by then, what will happen next? Thinking of this, Piccolo's face changed for a while, and it was really hard enough to decide. 71. Sharu, who was beaten violently, went into a violent state in anger. Boom! The sound of the explosion kept coming from a distance, and 3 powerful chi were colliding. Piccolo's face became more and more tangled. Finally, as Trunks became weak, he gritted his teeth and hurriedly fed the last Super Fairy Bean to Son Wu Tilda to eat. Son Gohan woke up from the coma. Uncle Piccolo, Dad, where are they? Son Wufan jumped twice, and then asked a question. They are fighting Sharu. Android 17 spoke up. Boom. Hearing this, Son Gohan's eyes narrowed, and he instantly transformed into Super Saiyan 1 and flew directly into the distance. Keep up. Piccolo said, and hurriedly followed. After a while, the three arrived on the battlefield one after the other. Dad, you! Sun Wukong saw that Sun Wukong's body was already crumbling, and it seemed that he was about to fall. If it weren't for the unconscious Vegeta and Trunks behind him, he might not be able to support it long ago. Because, he knew that once he fell, not only would he die, but Vegeta and Trunks would also die. Gohan. Sun Wukong looked back at Sun Wuhan in the sky and smiled with relief. Then, he slowly closed his eyes and fell down. Sun Wuhan hurried over, caught Sun Wukong, and then let Piccolo and the others leave the battlefield with the fainted people. Sun Gohan. Sharu glanced at Sun Wukong with fear, with a strong killing intent in his eyes. Sharu, I will definitely kill you to avenge number 16. Sun Gohan roared. Humph. Sharu snorted coldly and turned to run away. How could Sun Wukong let him escape? He dodged and arrived in front of Sharu in an instant, with a seemingly very simple punch. Boom. Super Saiyan 1-foot-S Gohan's suppressing power is not too strong for Sharu, so this punch can easily see the trajectory of the action, and the punch is right at the same time. This punch caused the air to vibrate a bit, and the two of them stepped back 100 or 200 meters. What? Can't you transform into the state you were before? Sharu's eyes flashed and he tried out. If Son Gohan can no longer transform into Super Saiyan 2, then he has absolute confidence to kill this little reptile. Oh, as you wish. Sun Wukong sneered, transformed into Super Saiyan 2 with a burst of gas, and his whole body exploded with electric lights. At this moment, his strength increased by an unknown number of times. Feeling the breath of Sun Gohan, Sharu narrowed his eyes. He knew that he couldn't beat Sun Wukong at present, and it was really not easy to escape. Let's fight a containment war. The only advantage, Sharu felt that he had Bix recovery ability cells, and the injury or something should be able to recover very quickly. So, this is his only important point to win. Sharu, who had already made a decision, no longer wanted to run away, but instead killed Sun Gohan. A good show is about to start. At this moment, Su Yi, who was outside the arena, carried his hands behind his back, looking at Shalu and Sun Gohan who were fighting indifferently, with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. He knew that Sharu, who no longer escaped, would gradually increase his strength while relying on Sun Gohan to fight. After all, this guy has Saiyan cells in his body, and the most buggy thing about Saiyans is that they will only grow after being abused. Therefore, the next period will be Sharu's most painful period. Bang bang bang. Just as Su Yi thought, even if Sharu in full body state has no power to fight back against Sun Gohan in Super Saiyan 2 state. Gohan, he's too strong. Seeing Sharu, who has been beaten and unable to fight back, not only Klein sighed, but everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but sigh. In their eyes, Sun Wukong can be said to be the most powerful person besides Su Yi. On the other hand, Sharu easily crushed Sun Wukong. At this time, he was beaten by Gohan, who was only a few years old. How can this scene not shock everyone? Sharu, you are too weak. Sun Wukong slammed Sharu with a punch, and an extremely indifferent voice entered his ears. Damn, why is this little reptile so powerful? Sharu's anger and fear rose at the same time, and the momentum was also getting stronger and stronger. The second bug of the Saiyans is reflected, that is, the state of anger, and the strength is even stronger. Ha! Sharu quickly retreated a few hundred meters, bent down and clenched his fists and roared. As his roar sounded, Sharu's body swelled up, much stronger than before, and his appearance was much more mature. Reptile, should I thank you? Shalu laughed coldly, and now, he felt a very powerful force surging in his body. Huh! Sun Wukong sneered, still ignoring Sharu. He raised his breath again, and rushed over. Katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. A punch with golden flame slammed out and hit Sharu directly. Your speed is too slow. Sun Wukong knew Sharu's shortcomings at a glance, and said coldly. Boom. With another punch, Sharu flew upside down. What if the speed is slow? My strength is much stronger than before. Now, I am confident that I can kill you with one punch. Sharu laughed loudly. Sun Gohan's two punches just now didn't cause any damage to him, it just didn't hurt or itch at all. You'll find out later. Sun Gohan rushed over again, Sharu flew into the sky, and the two fought in the sky. Although Sharu's speed has slowed down a lot, it is still unimaginable for Piccolo and the others, so the fight between the two seems to be just flashes of light in their eyes, and they can't see the live battle at all. Suyi, how was the fight between Gohan and Sharu? Krillin asked very worriedly on the side. 6 or 4. Suyi said lightly, and did not say who was 6 or 4. Hearing this, K-Lin's face darkened. He glanced at Suyi but didn't ask any more questions. However, seeing his urgent appearance, Lazili laughed. Hearing Lazili's laughter, Suyi looked back and found that the woman's eyes were on him, which made him a little puzzled. Lazili, are you laughing at me? You are so disgusting. Razuri smiled. We only talk halfway through. How do we know who is the 6th and who is the 4th? Gohan 6, Sharu 4. Suyi pursed his lips and said. Seeing Suyi say it, Qilin and Tianjin Fan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, but Qilin looked at Suyi with a bit of sadness. Seeing his gaze, Suyi smiled inwardly, but didn't say anything, and turned back to look at the battle in the field. Both Shalu and Sun Gohan became more and more excited, and their strength became stronger and stronger. But in Suyi's eyes, he saw something different. In fact, the little guy Sun Gohan actually has the absolute speed and strength to beat Sharu, but he doesn't. The realm of Super Saiyan 2 perfectly. The gifted little guy is worthy of being the son of Wukong. Suyi nodded and praised. 72. Completely clear Sharu. The time lasted for another 10 minutes, and Sharu could already see what Gohan was thinking, and with a gloomy face he stepped back several hundred meters and looked at Gohan coldly. Looks like you've seen my intentions. Son Gohan laughed. If that's the case, I've almost completely mastered the realm of Super Saiyan 2 anyway. Boom. A more powerful aura erupted, and Son Gohan didn't wait for Shalu to come back to his senses, and instantly rushed in front of him and punched him directly in the abdomen. Damn little reptile, I'll kill you for sure. Sharu was still stubborn. Even though he spat out several mouthfuls of blood, he was still very strong and did not admit defeat at all. In this regard, Sun Wuhan just smiled coldly. In this state, he is not only very powerful, but also very inflated. Gohan, don't tell him any more. He has my cells and his recovery ability is very powerful. Piccolo growled on the side. Hearing Piccolo's words, Sun Wukong smiled lightly, and didn't care too much. He turned around and said, May 13 inches. Uncle Piccolo, don't worry, no matter how strong Sharu's recovery ability is, it is still in my hands. Not good. Hearing this, Piccolo shook his head with a wry smile. He is himself, and he naturally understands how perverted his resilience is. Well, I'm not going to waste any more time. Son Gohan turned around and rushed towards Sharu. His momentum burst out, and it seemed that he was ready to kill Sharu. When Son Gohan set off, Shalu sneered and was ready to use his backhand. Since it's not an opponent, then, let's all die together. Thinking of this, Shalu suddenly rushed to Sun Wukong. The crazy look on his face made Suyi frown outside the arena. It seemed that this guy wanted to blow himself up and die together. However, Suyi knew that this guy did not succeed in self-destruction, but instead increased his strength. Here, he was completely tied with Son Gohan of Super Saiyan 2. Little reptiles, die, ha ha ha. Sharu rushed over, roared, and opened his hands as if embracing something, a burst of energy that could destroy the world and destroy the world. Not good. Sharu wants to blow himself up. Not good. Sharu wants to blow himself up. Seeing this, number 17 and number 18 on and off the field exclaimed at the same time. What? Hearing this, Piccolo panicked. Gohan, run. Sharu is going to blow himself up. Piccolo roared hard. Hearing this, Sun Wufan's expression changed. Although he could easily defeat Sharu, if he blew himself up, I'm afraid he really couldn't resist. Die, little reptile, die. Sharu grinned, and his body suddenly swelled up rapidly. Boom. A loud explosion exploded in midair, and then the aftermath dispersed. Boom. Oops. Sun Wufan glanced back and stepped forward to stop him with his own body, but it was of no use at all. After the shock wave of the explosion was overwhelmed, no one escaped this explosion disaster. It's over. Krillin's body trembled, and a sad expression appeared on his face. I don't know if Shenlong can revive Wukong and the others. Tianjin Fan was too rational, and immediately thought of making a wish to Shenlong. Soon, the aftermath of the explosion dissipated, and bursts of dust floated in the air. Wait. Krillin looked at the field, the sad expression on his face instantly turned into an excited expression. They're not dead. Sharu's self-destruction power is not enough to destroy Goku and the others. Tianjin Fan looked over and roared in surprise. Ha ha ha. Krillin and the others on the sidelines were happy. As long as they didn't die, it would be a very good thing. While everyone was rejoicing, Suyi noticed a small thing that looked like an embryo. Without guessing, he knew that this was Sharu. Call out. Suyi dodged, came to Sun Wufan and the others, and started feeding them super immortal beans one by one. Soon a group of people recovered, and their faces were full of surprises. Gohan, you did it. Sun Wukong came to Sun Wufan, reached out and patted his shoulder, and praised, I believe that soon, you little guy will be more powerful than me. Sun Wufan scratched his head embarrassedly and laughed. Suddenly his eyes narrowed, and he turned his head to look at a place. An embryo-like thing was slowly condensing into a person. What? Sharu is alive again. Piccolo looked at it, and his face suddenly changed. He didn't die when he blew himself up, so how could he kill him? Ding! Instantly kill Sharu in the form of lightning, and reward 1 million exchange points. Please note that the host must be instant killed to obtain quest rewards. Just as Sharu was gradually condensing and forming, Suyi's mind suddenly sounded the sweet and pleasant voice of the system. 1 million. Exchange points. WOC. System, you are so generous. However, how many seconds does it count as an instant kill? You have to say a time limit. From Suyi's point of view, resolving the battle within a minute is considered an instant kill. Because, before a minute, it was counted as seconds. Therefore, it is a matter of course that solving the battle within 1 minute is considered an instant kill. Host, your explanation is indeed a bit thick-skinned. Within 3 seconds, if the host cannot kill Sharu in lightning form, the reward will be invalid. The system complained, and then explained it very seriously. Okay. Accept. Suyi nodded, thinking back to reality. During the period of communication with the system, Sharu has been completely formed, and the electric light all over his body is crackling. He is almost a Super Saiyan 2 in this form, and his strength is not much different from that of Son Gohan in Super Saiyan 2 state. Is he also Super Saiyan 2? Piccolo saw the lightning flashing all over him, and his eyes were similar to those of Gohan before, all staring at the things in front of him with a contemptuous attitude. What a powerful force! Lightning Sharu clenched his fist. He had an illusion. With a punch, he could directly pierce the entire earth with the power of his flesh. "Sharu, you have transformed." Sun Wukong scolded, and just stepped forward and took a step to transform into Super Saiyan 2, but Suyi stopped him and said lightly, "This guy, let me solve it." Solve Lightning Sharu within 3 seconds. Then Suyi naturally has to transform into Super Saiyan 3, so he didn't even think about it. He transformed into Super Saiyan 3 directly, and under everyone's shocked eyes, he launched Turtle Sent Qigong Wave action. At the same time, the system began to count. 3. Turtle. 2. Pi. 1. Wave. ... Boom. Host, although I know you have this strength, you are obviously not playing cards according to the routine. Suyi didn't finish the words, and jumped 2 words at the last second. When he said the word wave, he saw that the Turtle Qigong Wave 3.6 still appeared in his palm, and he blasted away at Shalu. Ah! Sharu's screams sounded, and it was completely turned into fly ash under Suyi's blow. 1 million exchange points, thank you. Suyi grinned, but he didn't need to shout out those words. He also fired out the Turtle Qigong Wave every second. Ding! System rewards have arrived. The system shrewdly replied, and then stopped moving. Suyi didn't care either. If he didn't play cards according to the routine, he really didn't think it had any bad influence. The exchange point has arrived, and the Sharu incident is completely over. Go back and celebrate tonight. Suyi turned his head and found that the atmosphere was a little stiff, which made him lower his head and think for a while, then raised his head and waved his fist and roared. Good. After Suyi's roar, the scene remained silent for 2 seconds, and then there was a loud response from everyone. The chapter of Sharu is officially over. 73. This diamond level gift package is fat. Taking advantage of the afternoon, Suyi took the time to collect the 7 Dragon Balls. This time, the dragon was replaced by the gods, so the dragon could make 3 wishes every day. The first one Suyi promised was to revive all the ordinary people who died in Sharu's hands this time, and the second one was to clear the bombs in Laslie's body on the 17th and 18th of the androids. As for the third wish, he really didn't expect anything good, so he simply chose not to make this wish. Soon, at night, Suyi took the lead in holding a party, and Sun Wukong's heartstrings that had been tense for so long could finally be loosened. So, this party, everyone is very excited. I played until about 3 o'clock in the morning. It is worth mentioning that at this party, Lazuli on the 18th confessed directly to Suyi. This made Bulma and Mato Akatsuki look a little strange, but they were not jealous, and directly expressed their welcome to Razuri to join the big family. To be honest, with the addition of Laslie, the 2 of us can't fight against that guy, so what about the 3 of us? The 3 women came to one side and whispered. 25. Razuri, a young child, was naturally red-faced by the teasing of Bulma and Akatsuki, and kept saying, "Sister, don't be like this." At this, everyone burst into laughter. ... After the party, Suyi, who was full of alcohol, hugged Bulma and Laslie's water snake waist, and even took Akatsuki Mato, who was holding the little girl, to use teleportation to return to Exodu's home. At 4 o'clock in the morning, with a cry of pain and pleasure, Lazuli officially completed her transformation from a young girl to a young woman. Waking up the next morning, Bulma's 3 women were lying on the big bed, and their perfect bodies were revealed in front of Suyi's eyes. Waking up so early. Suyi shook his head, went into the bathroom to wash up, walked out and glanced at the time. It turned out to be only around 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, he had tossed with Bulma and the others for at least 3 hours last night. So, he just slept for a maximum of 2 or 3 hours. This damn biological clock, idiot. Suyi expressed his helplessness. Once he wakes up, it will be difficult for him to go back to sleep, so over the years, he has never experienced the feeling of coming back to sleep. Since he woke up after waking up, Suyi won't be too entangled in this problem. He just ate some breakfast and entered the training room. In the training room, Suyi did not enter the cultivation state for the first time, but began to think about the subsequent development of the plot. If he remembered correctly, 7 years after the end of the Sharu chapter, with the opening of the world's #1 martial arts conference, the Bu chapter officially opened. 7 years is definitely enough for me to grow to a very scary level. Suyi is very confident. Bu is like a child in front of him, and he has no power to fight back. However, if he was asked to resolve the matter, he would naturally not do so. He wants Goku to grow up and grow to the point where he can compete with him. After all, this is the world of Dragon Ball, he is the protagonist, and his growth is definitely very strong. Therefore, it was Suyi's plan to train him to be his opponent. It goes without saying how lonely it is to have no opponents. After starting to practice, Suyi is only one step away from completely controlling the 9 Suns divine art. As long as he has complete control, his physique will be automatically promoted to the 9 Suns divine physique. At that time, he will almost be able to practice the next exercise. With such a heaven-defying thing as a system, Suyi naturally doesn't have to worry about whether the next exercise will conflict with other gods if he practices. Therefore, if he can perfectly control a divine art as soon as possible, he is naturally willing to control it as soon as possible. An hour later, Suyi left the training room. The results of this time's practice were average, but Suyi didn't ask too much for the time being, and came to sit on a stone bench in the backyard. System, I want to receive today's login package. Speaking of which, Suyi forgot to pick up the gift bag because of something happened 2 days ago. When he recalled it later, he was naturally aching to death. The point is, the system didn't remind him. This is the most rigid. Ding! Daily random login packs are being delivered. Congratulations to the host, your random login package today has got a diamond level package. The gift package has been delivered to the host space package, please pay attention to check it. A series of system prompts rang in Suyi's mind. It turned out to be a diamond level gift bag. Suyi was stunned for a moment when he heard the system's beep, and then moved his thoughts into the system space in surprise and clicked on the package section. Diamond level gift package. The second stage of controlling the immortal body, Biming magic, 100,000 exchange points, 10,000 super fairy beans. 660. This diamond level gift bag should belong to the top diamond gift bag, and it contains so many things that it explodes. Compared with the last diamond gift package, it is completely one sky and one underground. What is the second stage of the undead? Suyi is more envious of this thing. As for the follow-up Biming magical art, to be honest, he is not very interested. After opening the gift package, a lot of system prompts sounded, and Suyi fierily opened the second stage of the immortal body and introduced the functions. Immortal body stage 2. The body is immortal and has 500% healing ability. The introduction is just 2 sentences, very simple. However, Suyi was completely stunned. Fuck, this second stage of the immortal body is too scary for Nima. It was the first time that Suyi had uttered foul language after so many years. From this, it can be seen how shocked he is at the second stage of this immortal body. The 8th chapter, although it is 8 chapters, but each chapter is more than 2,200, some 2,500 words, it can be said that 9 chapters are actually updated. Sincerely ask for a subscription. 74. The cute little loli with double ponytails. He remembered the second stage of the immortal body he had before, which only had a single attribute of 200% healing ability. You know, this single attribute is a very buggy ability. It's like he's got a very serious injury, and I'm afraid it will heal in minutes. Of course, over the years, he has indeed never been injured once. If I had to say it, I didn't rest too much when I faced Sharu last time, suffered a small loss, and was not injured. Don't look at the uselessness of this immortal body at the current stage. In fact, the more you go to the later stage, the more terrifying this immortal body can definitely show. In a battle between masters at the same level, one is afraid of being injured, the other is not afraid of being injured, so everyone should understand the importance of this, right? I don't know if this undead body will have a third stage. Suyi looked forward to it. The first stage has a single attribute, and the second stage has 2 attributes. If this is the third stage, will it have a third attribute? Expect. Suyi, very much looking forward to it. After learning the second stage of the immortal body, Suyi has completely mastered this ability, and then turned to Beiming Divine Art. Beiming Shengong, the highest martial arts of the Xiaoyao school, in Mr. Jin Yang's novel, The 8 Dragons. The power of magic is so powerful that even Shuzu, who is not yet familiar with the skills, can suck back Tianshan Tongmao and Li Chushui with deep internal strength. The introduction is just that, very simple. Suyi glanced at it and put the thing directly elsewhere. Absorb other people's inner strength. In this Dragon Ball world, there is a fart internal force. Moreover, even if you can absorb other people's chi, what's the use? Not to mention, if Suyi remembered correctly, to practice this thing, you need to pay for your own internal strength, or true chi, and then convert it into Beiming true chi. This thing is really useless to Suyi. Leave it first. If it's really useless, just throw it into the system space and recycle it. Suyi quickly made a decision and stopped thinking about it. Although there were many other things in the diamond gift bag, they were all small things, so it was not worth his attention. He got up and went to the inner room. Boom! A big bell hung in the living room of the inner room rang, which was the hourly sound. Huh, it's already 11 o'clock. Suyi was stunned for a moment, thinking that the time must have passed too fast. Luli is about to get out of school, and she's going to go on a trip soon, so she naturally wants to bring her little baby with her. Suyi laughed, put her index finger and middle finger a little between her eyebrows, and disappeared in her own home in an instant. The next second, she appeared at the gate of the kindergarten where the little girl was studying. Due to the crowd, no one noticed Suyi, who suddenly appeared beside him. However, at 11:15, the kindergarten ended. Dad. After a while, all the parents picked up their children and went home, but Suyi never received them, which made him a little surprised. But soon, a young girl's voice sounded in his ear. He instantly sensed it, looked up. Good guy, this girl actually floated in the sky at least 1,000 meters above. If it weren't for his amazing eyesight, he would never have seen this little girl. However, what surprised Suyi was, where did this little girl learn the sound transmission technique? He didn't remember that he had taught this girl, or even Bulma and Mato Akatsuki. Soon, Suyi instantly moved to the sky that was 1,000 meters high, and the little girl flew into his arms and rubbed her head comfortably. Let's not go to class for the time being, let's go on a trip as a family. Suyi rubbed the little girl's head and looked down, only to realize that she actually had a cute double ponytail, which really made her feel like a cute little loli. Oye, Luli is going on a trip with Dad. The little girl approached Suyi excitedly, and then Biaji kissed him on the cheek. Ha ha ha. Suyi laughed. ... Back home, Bulma's 3 daughters also woke up. Hello Aunt Razari. The little girl jumped down from Suyi's arms, said hello to Bulma and Akatsuki, and then called Lazli sweetly. Luli is so good. You are too. Razari responded with a generous smile. Luli, I'm going to change my name to Lazli's mother in the future. Bulma squatted down and took the little girl into her arms, smiling. The little girl stretched out her finger and put it in her small mouth and bit it, then tilted her head and called out sweetly, Mama Rasiri. Hearing this, Lazili's mother, Lazili's pretty face suddenly turned red, and then she responded shyly, then lowered her head and stopped talking. Diaresis Bulma, everything should be packed, right? Suyi asked. Packed up and ready to go. Bulma smiled and nodded. Okay. Suyebi made an okay gesture, then took the capsule that Bulma handed over, teleported to the backyard, and threw the capsule on the ground. Boom. A spaceship appeared, and it was the spaceship he started with. Traveling on the Earth, Tsuyi has already taken Bulma and Mato Akatsuki and the others to play, and there is basically no fun. Therefore, for this trip, Tsuyi had already decided to go to the universe. As far as he knows, the galaxy in the Dragon Ball world has many habitable planets and more alien creatures. A taste of the alien scenery is actually what Bulma has always wanted. Now, the family officially set off. Howlee. Planet Brado. This is the first alien planet that Tsuyi decided to travel to. It is not too far from the Earth, and the scenery is beautiful enough for them to spend a few months or even a year of playing time. After half a month, the spacecraft stopped outside the planet Brado. Stop the spaceship ahead quickly. The planet Brado has been reserved by King Gyula, and all foreign tourists are prohibited from entering. A roar sounded in front of the spaceship Tsuyi. King Gura. Is that Frieza's brother, Gura? Hearing the name said by the stopper, Tsuyi raised his brows, and a funny smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It's really that Gyula, so this first trip is really interesting. Because if this guy doesn't provoke him, it's fine. If he does, it just happens that his family will be reunited in hell. 75. Planet Brado, Frieza's brother Gyula. He doesn't know if this Gyula has heard of him, but presumably, as long as he turns into a Super Saiyan, I'm afraid he should be able to understand. Unfortunately, I can't survive in the vacuum of the universe. This ghost setting is really uncomfortable. Tsuyi smiled wryly and shook his head, otherwise he would go straight out of the spaceship to see who would dare to stop him. However, speaking of this, he remembered that Bardock was fighting Frieza outside of planet Vegeta. Isn't that in the universe? Perhaps. Can you try? Tsuyi mobilized the situation outside and took a look. The video was mapped to his spaceship. A large group of alien races were holding laser guns or laser cannons, or traditional ancient weapons just floating outside the planet. It's embarrassing for him to meow. Tsuyi shook his head and said that he was speechless. It turned out that after a long time, everything had bugs, or the news that ordinary creatures in the previous Dragon Ball anime could not survive in the universe was just a gimmick by the old man. Host, they are currently in the stratosphere of a planet. Note, the stratosphere of every planet has oxygen. When Tsuyi felt embarrassed, the system's sweet and pleasant voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Hearing this, Tsuyi blinked. Stratosphere. What is that? 563. To be honest, he has never heard of the stratosphere, whether in his past or present life. Anyway, nothing can survive in the universe. You just need to know that these alien creatures are outside the planet with oxygen. The system explained a sentence. Okay, I'm not literate anymore. Tsuyi felt a little embarrassed, put his index and middle fingers together a little between his eyebrows, and disappeared into the spaceship. Call out. The next second, Tsuyi reappeared in front of a large group of alien creatures outside the spacecraft. Well, there is really oxygen. Tsuyi took a deep breath, and then murmured in his heart. Hey, are you the owner of this spaceship? An alien creature that looked very much like a toad came forward with a rocket launcher and looked at Tsuyi coldly. Tsuyi nodded. Oh, be funny, you'd better get out of the way, or King Gyula will get angry and destroy your race. The toad said coldly. CFBH. Hearing this, Tsuyi pursed his lips, stretched out his hand and was just about to start, but when he saw the rash on the face of the toad monster, he was shocked, took a step back from a distance, and used an energy cannon to kill him directly. For this kind of scum whose combat strength is only a few hundred to 1,000, if Tsuyi wants to kill, he should not take it too easily. Moreover, he dared to say this kind of threat in front of him. Is it not courting death? Damn, he actually shot. Boom. Several alien creatures roared, but Tsuyi stretched out a finger, and the energy cannon swept out, turning everyone around him into ashes. There was no obstacle. Tsuyi teleported back to the spaceship, and then flew to this sky blue tourism planet. Above the sky, Suyi sent a miniature probe to this planet to collect information, and found that this planet is indeed a well-known tourism planet. Not only the air is good, but also the ecological environment. When Suyi was hesitating about where to settle on this planet, a spaceship flew in front of him. Look at the sign, which is the sign of the Space Thieves Army. Well, that's the logo of gangs like Frieza. It seems that the King Beulah that the shrimp soldiers and crab generals mentioned before is indeed Frieza's brother, Beulah. Stop the spaceship ahead. Suddenly, Suyi shook his head and laughed. Since this Beulah was dying, he was embarrassed not to let the three of them reunite in hell. Call out. After teleporting out of the spacecraft, Suyi didn't say much nonsense. After a Qigong cannon came down, the entire spacecraft exploded directly. Huh, not even dead. Suyi raised his brows and looked at an alien creature in surprise. This guy was Frieza's older brother Beulah. The two brothers. No, it should be said that the father and son are very similar in appearance and highly recognizable. However, this blow did not kill Beulah in seconds, which indeed surprised Suyi. Who are you, Tails? Are you a Saiyan? Beulah was frightened for a while, and kept sucking in the cold air, almost scared to death by Suyi's sudden blow just now, looked at him and noticed that when Suyi's tail was wrapped around his waist, his face changed in vain. Their family and the Saiyan family are mortal enemies. Not to mention the legend that their ancestor was killed by a Super Saiyan, but in recent years, he has received news that his father and younger brother were killed by Saiyans. It seems that you are really a Saiyan monkey, hee. Although it is very strange why your strength is so strong, but in my eyes. Beulah quickly calmed down. Although he was shocked just now, he thought that the Saiyan just attacked him unexpectedly, which caused the terrifying scene. There's a lot to talk about. Suyi shook his head and smiled, took a step forward gently, grabbed with one hand, grabbed Beulah's head directly, slowly lifted him up, and said with a light smile, "When you died, it happened to be with your father and brother. Reunite in hell, so you should thank me." No. Beulah roared, terrified. At this point, he really regretted that he stopped the spaceship. But even if you regret it, it's too late. Boom. Suyi made a fire in his palm and burned Beulah directly into a mass of ashes. At this time, the breeze blew, and the ashes floated away. The real fire of Juyong, after the cultivation of Juyong's divine power, was born in his body and was controlled by him. It can be seen from this point that this is indeed very different from the Nine-Yang divine art in the original world novel. Wait, this Nine-Yang divine art is so different, maybe I can really try it and see what the Biming divine art feels like. Suyi's eyes lit up suddenly, and he suddenly came to his mind. At least the 5th watch today, because there are some things to deal with. Yesterday's 8th watch, did you enjoy watching it? Ha ha ha, when things are settled, continue to come. 76. 7 years have passed, and the world's #1 martial arts conference has opened. Although he remembered the Biming magical art now, Suyi, who had returned to the spaceship, quickly forgot about it. He found a place to stay with Bulma and others and started sightseeing. Every day in the future, it is time to eat, drink, and play, and it is indeed very enjoyable. Soon, the first year passed, and Suyi and the others traveled to another planet. The second and third years have also passed, and it is still the same. Suyi is basically a salty fish every day, but don't think that his strength has not increased. Suyi, who remembered the Biming magic art, practiced this art. First, he did not abandon his practice of other exercises. Second, he did not possess Biming true chi. Third, this exercise is really scary tilde. He has already understood the different effects that Juyong divine art will produce in this world, and the same is true of this Biming divine art. When cultivating, controlling the Biming divine art in the first stage, the combat power growth rate tripled. The second stage increased tenfold. 20-fold increase in the third stage. Terrible. You know, this is just a broken Biming divine art. Fortunately, I have practiced. This beaming divine art is not the same as the beaming divine art that I know about. Suyi complained that he almost missed a very powerful exercise. Fortunately, he remembered and practiced this practice. In a flash, another 4 years have passed. Suyi and the others came back in the 5th year they left the Earth, and after 2 years on the Earth, they came to the present time. I-774, on the 2nd of May. Suyi just walked out of the training room, wiping the sweat with a towel in his hand. Dad, I want to participate in the world's #1 martial arts conference in 5 days. A blue-haired girl with 2 ponytails who was about 1.6 meters tall suddenly appeared in front of Suyi, then jumped on her body, hugged Suyi's waist, and looked up at him expectantly. Xiao Luli, who is now 12 years old, looks no different from an ordinary high school student. Suyi thought about it and nodded. It's okay to participate, but you must be in the youth group. Suyi doesn't really want this girl to participate in the martial arts conference, even though she can now perfectly control the powerful power she has in her body. However, he was still worried. Because this girl has too little battle experience. And the most important reason is that this time period was when Babidi appeared and Boo was born. Didn't you get sucked in energy once you didn't see Son Gohan? He didn't want to let this Boo story transition out of the way because of his unhappiness. After all, the plot points that he finally ushered in can earn exchange points, and he really didn't want to end it so soon. After 7 years of cultivation, his combat power has surpassed that of the original characters at the current stage. Under normal conditions, the combat power is 10 billion, and the gas burst state has a combat power of 100 billion. In the state of Super Saiyan 1, he has a fighting power of 500 billion, not to mention how terrifying the fighting power of Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 3 is. As for the little girl who has basically never practiced, her combat power is too weak compared to her own powerful cultivation talent. Under normal conditions, with only 100 million combat power, she can also transform into a Super Saiyan. In Super Saiyan 1, she has 5 billion combat power. However, since the girl transformed once a few years ago, she hasn't changed. Suyi asked her why, but the explanation he got left him stunned. Transformed into a Super Saiyan state, her hair will turn yellow, and this is a bad girl. Luli is the precious daughter of parents and mothers, and a good girl. What can Suyi say about this? However, with his protection, little girl Luli will not have any accident. After all, the things he has opened in the daily gift pack for the past 7 years and the things he has exchanged in the system mall space are no joke. He definitely armed Xiao Luli. A person with a combat power of less than 1 trillion, as long as they dare to act maliciously against her, they will shock the enemy to death in minutes. I haven't seen it for 7 years, and I don't know how Wukong and the others are practicing. Suyi thought about it. According to the original book, at this time, his combat power in Goku Super Saiyan 2 state is around 200 billion, and he in Super Saiyan 3 state is around 600 billion. As for Vegeta, the second child of 10,000 years, at this stage of the original work, the Super 2 is at most 180 billion. After the demonization, it should be able to be equal to the combat power of Sun Wukong Super 2. After thinking for a while, Suyi shook his head, not ready to think anymore. The father and daughter came to the living room. It was now lunchtime. After the family had eaten, they each got busy with their own work. At night, they were still sleeping together, and it was not too comfortable for Suyi to be served. Asking for flowers katakana middle dot katakana middle dot. Akatsuki Mato and Razuri have not been pregnant for so many years. To be honest, this made Suyi very uncomfortable. It's not that he really wants to have more children, but because he knows that the 2 daughters, Akatsuki Mato and Lazuri, are often crying because of this incident in private, and are very disappointed. In this regard, Suyi didn't know how to comfort the 2 girls, but was afraid that her comfort would be counterproductive, so she didn't care about it. He believed that when the fate came, Akatsuki Mato and Razuri would naturally conceive a baby for him. For this, to be honest, Suyi still prefers to have a daughter. After all, a daughter is her father's caring little padded jacket. A few days passed quickly. In IG 774, on May 7th, everyone rushed to the venue of the world's #1 martial arts conference. 0. Little Luli, come on. When Suyi took Xiao Luli to the venue of the #1 martial arts conference in the world, the three daughters Bulma, Akatsuki, and Leslie appeared one after another to see the little girl off. As for Suyi, he was left in the cold with a bitter smile. Soon, the farewell was over, and the little girl waved her hands excitedly to say goodbye to the three mothers. Dad, you said that Goten and Trunks will also participate. Xiao Luli and Suyi were flying high in the sky, and the little girl asked. Well, they'll take part. Suyi nodded and smiled. At this stage, the strength of these two little guys should be around 12 billion. Of course, this is the combat power of transforming into a Super One. However, for them who are so young, this combat power is indeed a bit fierce. Ah, then I can't win the championship like Dad. The little girl blinked, a little disappointed. Ha ha ha, it's alright, Xiao Luli, just focus on participating. Suyi laughed loudly, came to Su Luli's side, grabbed her hand, and said, the speed of flight is too slow, move over instantly. Call out. The words fell, and the father and daughter disappeared directly into the sky. When Suyi's father and daughter rushed to the venue, Sun Wukong and others also rushed to the venue one after another, and they arrived at the venue of the world's #1 martial arts conference. The fifth update is a bit late. Greeting friends. I don't have time to code words, I will make up for everyone tomorrow. 77. Get together, the youth group starts. Soon teleported to the venue of the world's #1 martial arts conference. Suyi led Xiaoliuli to sign up. As soon as he walked out of the registration area, he happened to meet Turtle Immortal and the others. Suyi. This guy Keelan waved to Suyi excitedly. Suyi smiled at him, and found that Sun Wukong and Vegeta were not there, not even Yamcha. Long time no see, everyone. Suyi greeted them one by one, and then Xiaoluli came forward obediently to say hello. Goku should be here soon. When Suyi asked, Immortal Turtle just replied, and Wukong's shout came from behind him, hey. Everyone is here so early. Suyi tilted his head and glanced at the past, and behind Sun Wukong were Vegeta, Gohan, Trunks and Goten. The two little guys were jumping up and down, and Suyi saw Xiao Wuxian for the first time in 897 inches over the years. After the two sides met and greeted, Sun Wukong and others went to sign up. After a while, the preliminaries began. This is the 25th World #1 Martial Arts Conference. This time, there are 35 contestants in the junior division and 194 contestants in the adult division. After a round of preliminaries, there were only 16 people left in the adult division, and only 8 people left in the youth division, which was considered a top 8. There is only one arena, and the number of juniors is very small, so the quarterfinals of the juniors will start early. Trunks, this time I must win the championship. Backstage in the youth department, Goten waved his fist at Trunks. HMPH, stop dreaming. Goten, you know my strength. So, this champion is mine. Trunks is confident. Su Luli, who was on the side, glanced at the two little guys, pouted the corners of her mouth, and thought to herself, if this young lady doesn't like cultivation, then which round will you two little guys compete for? HMPH, even so, you should know how good I am in a moment. Soon, the quarterfinals of the youth division began. Wuxian, Trunks, and Su Luli each played against one person. Fortunately, they did not meet in advance. Soon the quarterfinals were over, and a few people made it to the quarterfinals without any surprise. This time, Su Luli met Trunks, and Xiao Wuxian met another yellow-haired boy. In the first round of the semi-finals, Xiao Wuxian played against the yellow-haired boy, but within a few seconds, the boy fainted. The little player Sun Wuxian is really amazing, he knocked out the little bass player with one punch. The host shouted. Yeah, Goten is great. That's my son. Hee hee, my son is amazing. Outside the auditorium, Kiki, who has become an ant, waved her hands and shouted. Oolong kept twitching at the corner of his mouth. He tilted his head and glanced at Turtle Immortal. He found that he was staring intently at a place, and he couldn't help but follow him. A beautiful blonde girl was walking around in a bikini. Teacher Wu Tian's nature is still the same. Oolong complained in his heart, but then he took out a telescope from behind his butt, looked up and down the bikini blonde, and couldn't stop drooling from the corner of his mouth. When Oolong and Turtle Immortal were watching the bikini beauties, Su Luli and Trunks had already walked up to the ring. It's on. Backstage, Suyi and Sun Wukong came over and looked at the field. Who can win? Krillin asked with a smile. Vegeta glanced at Suyi, holding her chest with her hands and expressionless. Luli is not Trunks' opponent. The little girl has never practiced in 10 years. Let her experience it this time. Suyi smiled and said that he didn't care whether Su Luli could win the championship. Luli's potential is actually stronger. It's a pity. Sun Wukong shook his head and smiled. You know, when Xiao Luli was born at that time, the combat power crushed them countless times. After so many years, if they really practiced well, I'm afraid they would be beaten every minute. Can this girl Luli be transformed into a Super Saiyan? Piccolo's eyes flashed on the side, and he asked. Well, I should be able to transform when I was 3 years old. Suyi thought for a while and said. 3 years old. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. This is too terrifying. No, logically speaking, the strength of the little girl should not be too weak after the transformation, right? Kaylin frowned and said, after so many years, shouldn't there be no growth? He is indeed very strange. After all, this little girl is Suyi's daughter. Suyi pondered for a moment, then suddenly looked at the little girl in the field. Maybe this little girl will give him a surprise. Thinking of this, Su Yezhong was about to ask the system to investigate this girl's combat power, but after thinking about it, he still didn't do it. Since the little girl wants to give him a surprise, he should take a good look. The battle is on. Everyone, look, both of them are flying into the sky. My God, it's amazing to be able to fly at such a young age. The host's voice sounded, attracting the eyes of Suyi and others in the background. Sister Luli, your strength is very strong. In the sky, Trunks and Su Luli fought, and the two sides fought back and forth. Cut. Su Luli raised her head and slashed, suddenly raising her anger a little, raised her hand and punched it out. Boom. The speed was so fast that Trunks didn't react at all, and was directly knocked to the ground. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Trunks, who fell to the ground, blushed, then got up and stamped his feet, transforming into a Super Saiyan. This transformation, the combat power of 12 billion instantly attracted the attention of all masters. The strength of this little guy. At this time, in a corner of the backstage, two people, one tall and one short, walked out slowly, and saw Trunks in Super Saiyan 1 state with a condensed gaze. My lord, this is the Saiyan family. This is their transformed state, called Super Saiyan 2.4. Jabbat on the side opened his mouth and said. Well, I've heard of it. The Eastern Realm King Shen Shen nodded, then inadvertently glanced at Piccolo, who was looking at him with a solemn look, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. His breath. Seeing the Eastern Realm King Shen Shen, Piccolo's face suddenly showed a look of surprise, and beads of sweat suddenly appeared on his forehead. He is not weak now. With all his strength, his combat power is close to 100 billion. However, he felt a lot of pressure from the little man. That is not the pressure brought by strength, but the pressure on the spiritual level. As if. Can this guy naturally suppress him in aura? The update has been sent, and the 5th update may be a little later. I'm sorry everyone, I will make up for everyone tomorrow. 78. They are gods too. Sister Luli, you have to be careful. Trunks in the ring had a confident smile on his face at this time. He knew that he was very powerful after turning into a Super Saiyan. Well, I'll be very careful. Su Luli, who was wearing a white martial arts uniform, nodded with a smile, burst into gas, and her combat power came directly to 5 billion. Feeling the little girl's fighting power, Su Yi's eyes widened. Good guy, this girl is even going to lie to her father. However, the explosive state has a combat power of 5 billion, which really surprised him. Moreover, looking at the relaxed and freehand look on Xiao Luli's face, it is not difficult to see that Trunks did not pay much attention to her Super Saiyan state. Looks like it's going to give me a surprise. Su Yi nodded and smiled in satisfaction, and whispered in his heart. Brother Su Yi, Luli, this girl's strength is probably more than that. Sun Wukong's eyes lit up on the side. Well, Luli 25 in Super Saiyan state should easily beat Trunks. Vegeta glanced at it and nodded very pertinently. When Trunks lost to Luli, Vegeta naturally had nothing to say, because this was the man's man, and he felt very normal. If Trunks loses to Son Gohan, who is a few years younger, I'm afraid he will become irritable. Drink. Trunks didn't pay much attention, so he flew into the sky, with golden flames on his fists, and slammed towards Su Luli aggressively. Su Luli smiled lightly, only stretched out a finger, and nodded lightly into the air. Ding! A sound like bells colliding and jingling sounded in the field, and then a wave of ripples swayed in the air, like a small stone was thrown from the calm lake. Boom! After a second passed, Trunks arrived, and a sky-blue spherical object rushed in front of him, and then slammed into him. Trunks! Vegeta in the backstage changed her expression, roared angrily, and seemed to want to fly forward. Don't worry, you don't even know the strength of your son, your father is a failure. Su Yi stopped him and smiled. As soon as these words came out, Sun Wukong and the others immediately turned their attention to him. Ha ha ha, me too, I failed too badly. Su Yi naturally understood what their eyes meant, laughed awkwardly, scratched the back of his head, and said. Vegeta didn't answer, and looked at the field again, and Trunks flew out of a pit on the ring in disarray. Sister Luli, you are really powerful. Trunks pursed his lips and said nothing. To be honest, if it weren't for his quick reaction, the blow just now hit him, I'm afraid he would have lost his combat effectiveness even if he didn't faint. Hee hee. Su Luli smiled sweetly, and at a young age had already revealed the peerless beauty of the country and the city. Needless to say, Bulma's appearance, Su Yi's appearance is not the kind that everyone loves, but it can still be said to be top-notch, a proper handsome guy. The genes of both of them are very strong, making Xiaoliuli look like a perfect face that has been carved out, without the slightest flaw. Trunks looked at Su Luli, who smiled sweetly, her face blushed for no reason, coughed twice, and shouted loudly, Sister Luli, be careful. Next, I will be very serious. I fought you. You try your best, otherwise, you will lose. Su Luli smiled. Humph. Trunks still blamed the mistake just now on his carelessness. He didn't take the battle seriously, snorted coldly, and flew into the sky again. Su Luli was calm, and the backstage had been paying attention to the Monkey King in the arena. When they saw her expression, they were silent for a while. After all, she is Su Yi's daughter, and the previous generation's confrontation with them is also this calm attitude. Their next generation will play against his next generation, and they will not be able to beat it. Gohan, can you fight Ruri? Piccolo asked suddenly. I haven't tried. Son Gohan thought for a while and replied. Just like the original, Gohan, who was full of fighting power 7 years ago, has become too weak, and now he has entered the period of Nobihin. Perhaps, the mysterious Gohan who fights Buu soon will bring him to the top again, but after that, he has basically been completely reduced to Nobihin. Su Yi glanced at Sun Wufan, and the system informed him of his combat power, over 150 billion, over 210 billion. Compared with 7 years ago, it is more than 1 grade weaker. However, for the strength in the original work, Nobifin at this time is still strong. Boom. At this time, there was an explosion in the field. Player Trunks has already flown out of the ring, and Player Sue has won this match. The host's voice rang out in the audience. Call out. As the host announced the victory, a sound of breaking through the air sounded, and Su Luli flew over, so fast that only Suyi and Sun Wukong saw it. Dad, is Luli amazing? Flutter. The little girl pounced directly on Suyi, like a koala, rubbing her head against his chest. Ha ha ha, my little Luli is amazing. Suyi rubbed her head and let her get out of his arms. Hurla tilde. Even though the little girl is already 12 years old, in fact, the reason is that she has too little experience, she is still innocent and outrageous, and her mind is exactly what a 12-year-old girl should have. Vegeta, why don't you go see Trunks? Seeing the worried Vegeta, Sun Wukong teased and pushed him. Don't go. Vegeta snorted coldly. My son, Vegeta, can never be so fragile. How to stand up when you fall. Hearing this, Suyi shook his head and smiled, and suddenly there was a sound of footsteps behind him. He turned around and glanced, and 2 people came over. It was the Eastern Realm King God Shin and Jabit. As the Eastern Realm King God Shin and Jabit got closer and closer, the sweat on Piccolo's face became more and more, and he was shocked. They are also gods. 79. The demonized man, the evil magician Babidi. Are they also gods? Hearing Piccolo's slightly trembling voice, Sun Wukong and the others were stunned. Hello, Saiyan Son Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo. Shin came over, and Jabit followed behind him, very respectfully. Hearing Shin calling out their names accurately, Sun Wukong frowned, especially Vegeta, who glanced at Shin and the others indifferently, and snorted without saying a word. Excuse me, which god are you? Shin had already walked in front of a few people. Piccolo stepped forward, bowed respectfully, and then raised his head and asked a question with some doubts. Shish. Shin glanced at Piccolo, made a silent motion, and then smiled at Sun Wukong, who had heard of him when he was in the Eastern Realm. As ordered. Piccolo merged with the gods to become a real Super Namekian, but he was also the god of the canonized earth. In essence, he is Shin's subordinate, so it is not unreasonable to be so respectful. This time, I don't want to disturb too many people. You are busy with yours, and I am busy with mine. Shin opened his mouth and said that although he had heard of the power of these Saiyans, he did not care too much. Because in his eyes, human beings, no matter how powerful they are, can they be more powerful than gods? Impossible. Therefore, he didn't think that Sun Wukong and others could help him. After all, this time he was facing the legendary evil character. On the contrary, he didn't even want to involve Sun Wukong and the others. Okay. Piccolo responded respectfully. Shin smiled and nodded, then glanced at Suyi, who had an indifferent face, and turned back to the previous corner. Soon, Su Luli returned to the ring, and the championship was her and Sun Wushan. Trunks with a combat power of 12.2 billion is not Su Luli's opponent, but Sun Wushan with a combat power of 10 billion will naturally not be Su Luli's opponent. In just a few minutes, it was Su Luli who poured the water, otherwise it would only take half a minute at most, and I am afraid that Sun Wushan would be defeated. There is no suspense, Su Luli won the championship of this year's youth division. The little girl ran over very excitedly, and then went to Suyi to ask for credit. Great. Suyi rubbed Xiao Luli's head and praised. Then, the adult competition began. Suyi wasn't the first, so he watched with Xiao Luli. The first scene was a few characters from the original Dragon Ball. Suyi glanced at it and was not impressed, so he chatted with Xiao Luli. Soon, the first game, the second game, and the third game were played one after another, and it was Suyi's turn for the fourth game. On the stage, the opponent was still a little-known original character. Suyi just stretched out a finger to bombard the arena. This guy consciously admit defeat. During the 5th game, it was Bic, and it was also very easy to solve. Just in the 6th game, Suyi saw that Bidili was on the court, and suddenly came to the spirit. This girl is Satan's daughter, and her strength is okay in front of ordinary people, but in this scene, she is no different from Zon 5 scumbags. Spobich, get rid of this little girl as soon as possible. Outside the backstage, a big man roared. Don't worry. The big man in the ring made an okay gesture and quickly launched a very fierce attack on Bidili. Drink. When the two fought, Bidili's strength was good, but this Spobich was actually a demonized person, and his strength was not much stronger than hers. Soon, Bidili had been knocked down in the ring. Damn. Backstage, the masked Superman costumed Son Gohan gritted his teeth for a while, wishing he could fly out immediately to save Bidili. At this moment, Suyi, who was on the side, stepped out suddenly, stretched out and pushed Sun Wufan. Ah, Uncle Suyi, you. Sun Wufan was stunned for a while, wondering why Suyi pushed him. If you don't come to power, your lover will die. Suyi joked. Uncle Suyi, what are you talking about? Bidili is not my lover. Sun Wufan suddenly jumped up and hurriedly waved his hands. Ah. The screams of Bidili came from the arena. Hearing this voice, Sun Wufan's face under the mask instantly turned gloomy, and he turned around and flew directly to the field. Huh, that little girl, is Gohan's girlfriend. Sun Wukong got close to Suyi and asked a strange question. Suyi glanced at him. People with low emotional intelligence are really scary, and they can't even see it. Diaresis, you'll find out later. Suyi said a word with a smile, and then waited for the plot to progress slowly. He knew that this Spobich would absorb all of Son Gohan's energy, and after being treated by Jabit, the boot chapter officially began. Soon, just like the plot in Suyi's memory, Sun Wufan's energy was absorbed by that Spobich, and then he quickly escaped from the ring, and then everyone chased after him. Dad, what should we do? Shall we catch up? Su Luli's face was very excited, and she asked aloud. Boo. Suyi stretched out his hand and flicked her forehead lightly, and said, Go back, it's enough to be addicted to the hands once in this martial arts conference. Humph. Su Luli pouted, she could hang a soy sauce bottle. Good. Suyi saw that Sun Wukong and his party were flying into the sky, so naturally he was a little anxious. He touched King Li's Xiao Luli's head, then lowered his head and kissed her forehead, using teleportation to leave the world's #1 martial arts conference the venue. Thousands of meters away, Suyi had already caught up with Sun Wukong and his party. So, that terrifying monster Majin Buu, who was created by that sorcerer Babidi in the past, is now being sealed in an unknown place on Earth. As soon as Suyi arrived, he heard that Bic was asking about Shenqin, the king of the Eastern Realm. That's right. Shin, who was flying, glanced at Piccolo, and said solemnly, the only one who can unlock this seal is Babidi, the son of the magician, Babidi. And this Babidi has come to Earth, and is planning to unravel it. Open the seal of the terrifying monster Majin Buu. The first update will be delivered today. At least the 6th update. Looking forward to the 7th update, and pursuing. 80. Dapra, the king of the demon world. Just scum. Hearing Shin's words, Sun Wukong and the others also looked solemn. After a while, Sun Wukong asked, is this magician Babidi very powerful? It should be regarded as a powerful character. This guy is a magician and will use very terrifying spells. Just like the 2 demonized people you have seen before, and, under the control state, whether it is physical quality or combat effectiveness, will be improved by more than 1 grade. However, the premise that he can control a person is that that person must have evil thoughts. Shin explained. That's it. It's amazing. Hee, I really want to fight this guy. Sun Wukong laughed excitedly. Vegeta, who was flying silently on the side, suddenly narrowed her eyes flashing with strange brilliance, as if she was thinking about something. After a while, the flight speed of several people slowed down, and soon landed on a stone pile. From a distance, a basement-like door was placed on the ground in the distance. There were a total of 3 people at the door, the 2 demonized people holding pots before, and a very ugly alien. Is that guy the sorcerer Babidi? Wukong looked over and asked in a low voice. No, not him. Shin shook his head, frowned and said, I think he should kill Babidi's subordinates. After all, there are too many people with evil thoughts in this entire universe. Okay. Sun Wukong suddenly lost interest, responded, looked around, and said solemnly, the ground around here seems to be a little wrong. At this moment, Jabit and Sun Gohan who came later also approached them. Jabidi's face was covered in sweat, and he swept the surrounding environment, clenched his fists and said solemnly, so that's the case, Babidi. That guy hid the spaceship underground, no wonder we couldn't find any trace of him before we searched. Damn it. Are you going to make a move? Piccolo turned around and said solemnly, if they were to give Gohan's powerful energy to the demon Buu in the seal, the consequences would be unimaginable. Don't worry, don't worry. They resurrected Majin Buu, and they won't let the spaceship be destroyed, so they will definitely come out. Shin calmly analyzed. In short, let's take a look at the situation first, and then find an opportunity to start. Speaking of which, Shin is really bitter. Originally, he didn't want these humans to be involved, but after all, he couldn't hold back his power as too small. Speaking of this, he blushed again, very embarrassed. Because he still looked down on this Super Saiyan or a human before, the power of Gohan's explosion just now gave him a slap in the face. If these powerful people are not looked down upon, then what is his realm god? No longer thinking about it, everyone observed it. Time passed by, and when Suyi was a little impatient, the 2 people who led to the underground door slowly walked up. A tall alien creature with a white cape, pink skin and blue clothes. The other is a very dwarf alien creature that looks very ugly, and a pair of small eyes reveal a very wretched atmosphere. These 2 people, the tall one is Dapra, and the other is the evil magician Babidi. Dapra, how could this guy Babidi be united with Dapra, the king of the demon world? Seeing these 2 people, the faces of the Eastern Realm King Shen and Jabit on one side were cold sweat dripping down, hesitating, and whispering in horror. Obviously, this Dapra's fame is very big, enough to make Shindu, who is the king of the gods, tremble. Huh. Hearing this, Krillin blinked his eyes with a worried look on his face. Dapra, is that the tall guy? Sun Wukong turned his head and asked in surprise. That's right. Shin swallowed and nodded. Then, is this guy great? Sun Wukong asked solemnly. Of course it's amazing, you have to know that this CFFA guy is the king of the dark demon world. Shin whispered, when he saw Dapra, the king of the demon world, he didn't even dare to take a breath. Obviously, he was very afraid of this Dapra. Then, what is the dark demon realm? It was the first time that Sun Wufan had heard of this world, and he immediately asked a question out of curiosity. Sun Wukong and others were also very curious. As for Su Yi, he looked sleepy and lazy. To be honest, he was really falling asleep. On the other side of this world, there is actually another world. The number 1 master in this world may be one of you, but the number 1 person in another demon world is this Dapra. Shin was terrified, and the cold sweat on his forehead never stopped flowing from beginning to end. Huh, isn't this demon king Dapra very powerful? Krillin, who was on the side, was taken aback and shrank his neck. Yes. Shin nodded. Hearing this, Sun Wukong looked towards the field, his eyes fixed on Dapra, the king of the demon world. His eyes were full of warlike rays of light. This time, I will definitely be able to play a good game. Sun Wukong laughed. Fight, Wukong, you must not have this idea. Shin's face changed, and he hurriedly persuaded. People who may be very powerful in your eyes are actually so fragile in our eyes. At this time, Su Yi suddenly spoke up, and after squatting for a long time, his legs were numb, and he slowly got up. Squat down, squat down, squat down. Seeing Suyi stand up, Shin's face instantly paled, and he reached out to pull Suyi down. However, when he stretched out his hand in midair, he was taken aback by Suyi's indifferent eyes, so he stopped in midair. It's not like taking it back, La Suya, he didn't dare for a while. Sir Shin, this is Suyi. He is very powerful, maybe the king of the devil world. Dapra is the #1 expert in the devil world in your eyes, but in front of him he's probably just a reptile. After thinking for a while, Bix came forward to mediate the atmosphere, and introduced Suyi by the way. Hearing this, Shin only felt his throat dry for a while, shook his head and smiled bitterly. No, Dapra noticed us. Suddenly, Jabbit, who had been staring at Babidi on the ground in the distance, exclaimed. Because, he saw Dapra spit out a mouthful of phlegm toward him and the others. Humph, it's just a mouthful of phlegm to scare you, a god with a divine position, into this. Vegeta folded his arms across his chest and sneered. His childhood experiences made him not have the slightest sympathy for these so-called gods. At this time, he finally couldn't help but sneer.